Inside the nightclub, where the heavy bass threatened to burst my eardrums, I was grinding against a stunning new model in a heated dance, when the phone in my pocket began vibrating incessantly, killing the mood. The caller ID flickered with a name that made my heart drop. Wife. I cleared my parched throat, faking a pathetic, sickly nasal voice. Wife, I've got a fever hitting nearly 104 degrees. Monkeys. I honestly can't even get out of bed. A voice came through the receiver, incredibly sultry, yet freezing enough to send chills down my spine. Oh, that fever must be scorching indeed, considering your hips are twisting all the way to heaven. My entire body stiffened instantly, and a cold sweat broke out across my brow. The VIP booth to your right? Bring that little darling in your arms, and come have a drink with me. Before I could even think about bolting, the scruff of my neck, my literal Achilles heel, was firmly seized by a hand that felt like ice. A scent of chilled agar wood washed over me, followed by a lethally dangerous whisper in my ear. Hubby, why are you trying to run away? Your wife is here to personally help break your fever. Staring at this woman with her piercing icy gaze and an aura of absolute dominance, I was on the verge of tears. Who could have possibly predicted that just over half an hour ago, my 10 years younger self had just transmigrated into this body? Looking at the wedding portrait on the wall and a little brat who looked exactly like me, I had asked him, "Where's your mother?" The kid just toyed with his prayer beads, not even bothering to look up. At Phuc Temple meditating, I felt my sanity snapping right then and there. I was a legendary chaotic troublemaker. Yet 10 years into the future, I'd actually married a cold celibate. None, not only did she ban me from clubs and racing, but any hint of rebellion was met with threats of divorce. Future me had apparently surrendered to her, becoming a pathetic model husband for her sake. Future me might take that disrespect lying down, but the version of me from 10 years ago absolutely won't. I stormed into the nightclub immediately. My childhood friend was trembling beside me. Are you really not afraid of that living goddess at home snapping? I let out an arrogant cold snort. Afraid of what? Who the hell is going to live like a monk for some old woman? As it turned out, the moment those words left my mouth, the woman who usually avoided such sin had manifested in the club. Right now, she was peering down at me with an icy disdain, her gaze radiating a lethal, overwhelming sense of authority. Living like a monk. Then tell me that son of ours back at the house. Ishas. Did I spawn him through asexual reproduction? I was left speechless. Shen Chuhan was the ultimate dream wife for every elite socialite, bar none. She took the reins of her family empire at just 20. Maintaining a reputation of cold, untouchable elegance. She never touched a drop of booze or a cigarette. Her only hobby was a monthly retreat to a temple for Zen meditation. I, on the other hand, was her polar opposite, losing my mother at a young age. My favorite pastimes in life were exactly the things my father forbade me from doing. Booze clubbing and street racing. I lived life on my own reckless terms. It never even crossed my mind that I'd actually end up marrying someone like Shen Chuhan. Staring at the couple huddled together in the wedding photo, I felt a burning curiosity to finally see her in the flesh. So after a quick cleanup, I stormed out the door. On the winding road toward Phuc Temple, a flood of strange foreign memories began to saturate my mind. I was replaying moments like a cinematic reel and realized with a shock that these were experiences I hadn't lived yet. A full decade of lost time. The me in those memories had traded his teenage rebellion to become the ultimate model husband of the year. In the dead of winter, the mountain path was treacherous and grueling. Standing outside Phuc Temple, I struggled to hide my true self, forcing a polite, dignified expression onto my face, before finally knocking on the heavy wooden door. Moments later, a monk opened it. "What brings you here, benefactor?" "I'm looking for Shen Chuhan. I'm her husband." The word husband rolled off my tongue with a strange weight, as sweet and dizzying as a mouthful of honey. Soon the woman emerged from the depths of the temple, clad in simple plain-colored robes. She was fingering a string of agarwood prayer beads, her features as flawlessly carved and cold as a marble statue. Is something wrong? I had been so hyped to get here that I completely forgot to concoct a believable excuse. After an awkward pause, I managed to choke out, "I'm here to take you home." I didn't expect what happened a second later. The woman's gaze turned razor sharp, her tone dropping to a dangerous level. "Are you pushing for a divorce?" I froze in my tracks, completely and utterly bewildered. I frantically began to scroll through the flood of foreign memories in my mind, searching for the trigger. Back when we first wed, Shen Chuhan had laid down one absolute ironclad rule. I was never to disturb her during her sacred retreats. But I had foolishly trespassed onto the mountain anyway, igniting her fury for the very first time. After that, I never dared to cross that line again. No wonder my son looked so conflicted. When I mentioned I was coming up here to find her, I stammered an explanation. I didn't mean to." "Then don't bother me again." Shen Chuhan cut me off with an icy finality, turning to slam the heavy temple door shut. Suddenly, a refined male voice rang out, calling her name from somewhere behind us. I frowned and whipped my head around to see a man approaching with an air of elegance. He was clad in a flawless, custom-tailored suit, sporting a sharp, professionally groomed haircut, with a natural composure that seemed bred into his very bones. He gave me a slight dismissive nod. before turning his focus to Shen Chuhan. "There's an emergency at the office. I'm here to pick you up." Who the hell was this guy? It took me a long moment of mental digging to find a name Pei Jingji. Apparently he was Shen Chuhan's personal assistant. But what kind of assistant addresses his boss with such casual intimacy? A surge of irritation boiled in my chest as I waited for her to shut him down just like she did me. However, to my absolute shock, Shen Chuhan's attitude shifted entirely. "Yeah, all right, just give me a second." I stared at her in utter disbelief. Between the two of us, who was actually her husband, without thinking, I reached out to grab her wrist, but she swiftly pivoted her body to evade my touch. I couldn't pull back my momentum in time, and my foot slipped on the treacherous ice. I went down hard, tumbling violently onto the snow-covered steep slope. Ugh, the impact left my nose throbbing and sensitive, and tears of pure pain began to well up in my eyes. I assumed that even if she didn't help me up, she would at least stop to ask if I was okay, but when I finally looked up, her silhouette had already completely vanished. Only that familiar, black Hankey luxury car with the 88888 plates was seen speeding away into the blinding snow. Over the next few days, Shen Chuhan remained noticeably absent, and I made no effort to reach out to her again. Not until the weekend did I receive her call. Her voice remained as frigid and detached as ever. "Get ready. We're taking our son to the ancestral home for dinner tonight." I still hadn't figured out how to handle Shen Chuhan, but I knew a family gathering like this was mandatory. At 6 p.m. sharp, her car pulled up to the front of the house. As Loose Eyes and I climbed inside, she was buried in documents in the back seat. Her eyes were deep and intense, her features calm and strikingly handsome, looking like a masterpiece that was pleasing to the eye. Sitting beside her and watching her profile, my simmering resentment suddenly began to fade. I figured that even though Shen Chuhan and I didn't marry out of a burning passion, feelings can grow over time. There's no way she could remain indifferent forever. Maybe we just needed more quality time together. Lost in thought, we arrived at the Shen family estate. According to my memories, my mother-in-law had always been quite fond of me. Having lost my own mother so young, I craved that maternal affection even more. So, the moment I entered, I casually linked my arm with hers. "How have you and Dad been feeling lately?" My mother-in-law froze for a split second, then subtly slipped her hand out of my grasp. With a polite, stiff smile, she replied, "We're fine. There's no need to worry about us." Just then, my son looked up at Shen Chuhan. "Mother, I want to find some books in grandfather's study. Could you come with me?" Shen Chuhan nodded slightly, and the two of them headed up to the second floor. I stayed in the living room to chat with my in-laws. Shortly after dinner was announced as ready, I stood up and ushered the elders to the dining hall, deciding to go find the mother and son myself. I walked to the entrance of the second floor study. Just as I raised my hand to knock, I heard my son's voice from within, immature yet chillingly calm as he questioned his mother. "What did you think of father's behavior just now?" My movements stiffened instantly, completely baffled by the meaning behind his words. Immediately after, the woman's voice drifted through the door. "What are you implying?" The next second, my son calmly voiced his true feelings. "Mother, I believe Uncle Pei is far better suited to be your husband." And my father. My heart stopped dead for an agonizing heartbeat. I white-knuckled my fist, and before she could respond, flung the door wide open. The atmosphere turned to ice in a fraction of a second. My son's eyes shook with violent tremors, and he instinctively took a retreating step back. Yet the woman's expression remained one of pure disdain. I stared at the mother and son with a hollow calm, offering not a single word of protest. I simply turned on my heel, went downstairs, and walked out the front gate. Slamming the door behind me, I immediately scrolled through my contacts for my best friend's number and hit dial. 1 hour later, at the midnight bar, cheers. Glass tumblers collided with a sharp crystalline ring. I drained my glass in a single desperate gulp. The suffocating gloom that had weighed on me all night finally began to lift just a little. "Not bad at all, the old blade's still sharp," my friend said with a grin as he watched me. "So what's the deal with you and Shen Chuhan? Didn't you say she hated this scene, and that you were retiring from the nightlife for good?" The moment Shen Chuhan's name was uttered, the faint smile on my face completely evaporated. I replayed everything that had transpired at the Shen estate as a tidal wave of bitterness flooded my soul. I never should have gone there to humiliate myself. I slammed my glass down and looked my friend dead in the eye with haunting sincerity. "What do you think the odds are of me divorcing Shen Chuhan?" My friend froze in shock. "What I said?" I grabbed him by the collar, pulling him close, leaning into his ear as I shouted over the music. "I'm going to divorce Shen Chuhan." The entire bar fell into a sudden deathly silence. I was so deeply buried in my own chaotic thoughts that I failed to notice the atmosphere shifting around me. My friend, however, clearly spotted something terrifying. His expression tightened instantly as he began frantically signaling me with his eyes. I just frowned. "What's wrong with your eyes? You having a stroke?" He simply face-palmed in frustration and looked away. Only then did I realize everyone in the bar had frozen, their eyes glued to me like I was a dead man walking. A sudden cold wave of panic washed over me, and I instinctively turned my head to look behind. There, under the flickering neon lights, stood a woman with dark, hollow eyes and a face as cold as a winter grave. What exactly did you just say? After a suffocating silent standoff, she let out a long, weary exhale, massaging her throbbing temples as she sat down beside me. Her tone was a mix of forced compromise and utter exhaustion. We need to talk. I nodded firmly. Good, because I have plenty to say to you too. Shen Chuhan, let's get a divorce. Whatever words Shen Chuhan had prepared to say died right there in her throat. Her face flickered with shock before settling into a dark, stony mask. I don't agree to this. I didn't actually expect to convince her so easily. Whatever. Think what you want, but I'm done. I stood up without another word, dragged a pre-packed suitcase from the corner of the living room, and marched straight out of the villa. The heavy thud of the door closing echoed behind me. Shen Chuhan finally snapped out of her daze, bolting toward the door to stop me. But as she swung it open, the only thing left to see was the lingering exhaust trail of a departing taxi. A suitcase ready to go, a car hailed in advance. This wasn't some impulsive tantrum. This was a meticulously planned escape. Shen Chuhan's eyes darkened into a deep, stormy abyss. Meanwhile, I sat in the back of the cab, staring blankly ahead. Ever since I transmigrated to this timeline, everything that had happened lately replayed in my mind like a frantic, blurred montage. Yet nothing seemed to stick. After what felt like an eternity, the car finally slowed to a halt. I nodded to the driver and reached for the door handle. But then I looked out the window at the desolate, lonely forest scenery. I froze in absolute confusion. Where the hell are we? The driver looked equally bewildered. I checked the navigation on my phone, Phuc Temple. The destination you set in the app was right here, sir. I scrambled to check my recent history, and realized with a jolt that the last time I used this app was to find Shen Chuhan. I had completely forgotten to update the address. I could have easily asked the driver to take me back to the city center, right then. But for some inexplicable reason, I simply thanked him and stepped out into the night, standing once more before the gates of Phuc Temple. The setting was identical to before. Yet my entire state of mind had shifted. Even in the dead of night, the scent of burning incense drifted from within, soothing my frayed nerves instantly. After a moment's hesitation, I knocked on the heavy door. The temple gates groaned open almost immediately. It was the same young monk, and he recognized me. He looked stunned. Mr. Lu? I gave a weary nod. May I come in? The monk stepped aside, leading me to the bamboo hut where Shen Chuhan meditated. This is Miss Shen's private sanctuary for her Zen practice. You may stay here for the night. With a respectful bow, the young monk turned and vanished. I stood alone in the silence of the bamboo house. The room was pristine, minimalist, and devoid of clutter, carrying the faint, lingering aroma of sandalwood. Suddenly, a wave of clarity washed over me. I finally understood Shen Chuhan's obsession with Zen. This place offered a stillness for the soul. The human heart is a treacherous, unpredictable thing. Trying to decipher the mysteries of just Shen Chuhan's heart alone had left me utterly drained. I could only imagine what she faced, having to tangle daily with the ruthless cunning foxes of the business world. A heart stained by greed and desire becomes toxic. She likely sought refuge here to avoid becoming like them. I took a deep, steadying breath. Just as I was about to rest, something caught the corner of my eye. A slip of paper pinned beneath a wooden paperweight. I walked over and picked it up. The date was from 8 years ago, July 12th. With a single line, marriage and children were never my desire. Merely a path of cold duty I was forced to walk. To satisfy my parents' wishes, I vowed to spend my life in penance, hoping to cleanse the sins of this lifetime. To cleanse her sins. The world suddenly turned pitch black before my eyes. I was always aware that Shen Chuhan didn't love me, and that our marriage was devoid of any real affection. But it never crossed my mind that to Shen Chuhan, marrying me and bearing a child was actually considered a sin. I crushed the note within my trembling fist, feeling as if a blade had been plunged into my chest, viciously shredding my heart to pieces. Memories of our first encounter suddenly flooded back. That day, I was racing my motorcycle alone on a mountain road when a sudden downpour began to drench the asphalt. My tires lost their grip and skidded out of control. I tumbled down the embankment, invisible to the world, until Shen Chuhan appeared like a phantom. She held a massive black umbrella, descending like a cold deity to save me. From that day on, she became an obsession I could never truly shake. I had lived for the hope of meeting her once more, never imagining I would transmigrate through time, only to witness the tragic finale of our doomed story. Perhaps everything was a mistake from the very beginning. I stood there motionless for the entire night, slipping away from Phuc Temple just as the dawn broke. Because it was so early in the morning, no drivers would accept my ride request. I trekked to the highway and waited an eternity to hail a cab. Once inside, I sent a cold, emotionless message, directly to Shen Chuhan. Once we divorce, your sins will finally be washed away. Then I ruthlessly blocked her number for good. One wrong turn in life is more than enough. I won't waste an entire lifetime on her. Half an hour later, I pressed the doorbell of the Lu family villa. In the living room, my father was busy on a call, his breakfast sitting untouched on the table. Seeing me enter, he hung up and fixed his gaze on me. What are you doing back here? I'm divorcing Shen Chuhan, I declared. I lowered my eyelids to hide the pain, sitting at the table and taking a bite of a stale sandwich. The moment the words left my lips, father slammed the table in a rage. Nonsense, is divorce a joke? You think you can just quit whenever you feel like it? My mother passed away when I was just a child, and I always blamed my father for her tragic end. Consequently, I made it my mission to oppose him in everything. For years, we have lived in a state of constant bitter conflict. The only time I ever bent to his will was when I agreed to marry Shen Chuhan. My father lunged forward, dragging me toward the exit. You're going back right this instant. You're a grown man now. You have a child, yet you're still acting this reckless. His lecture cut off abruptly, as he caught sight of my devastated expression. Dad! Since the day I married her, I haven't known a moment of peace. The sandwich was still dry in my mouth, my voice tight and jagged with emotion. A second later, an even more bitter confession spilled from my lips. She doesn't love me. She doesn't love me at all. Father froze, looking completely blindsided, utterly lost on how to handle his rebellious son's sudden raw vulnerability. A heavy, stifling silence descended upon the living room. As my father and I stood there in a mute standoff, the sharp chime of a phone notification broke the quiet. He glanced down at his screen, then stepped forward, his calloused hand squeezing my shoulder. Back then, I told you to think long and hard. This is the person who is supposed to be by your side for life. Once you chose her, there was no turning back. So many years have passed, and your son is already grown. You can't just act on a selfish whim. My face went pale as I stared back at him, trapped in the suffocating weight of my own emotions. He turned to the butler with a stern command. Escort the young master and his luggage out of here. Then he looked at me. Chuhan is waiting for you outside. I was paralyzed. I stared at him in utter disbelief. Before I could even process the betrayal, the butler half ushered, half dragged me out the front door. It wasn't until the door slammed shut that I found my voice. Lu Zhengting, do you even have a heart? I'm your flesh and blood. Evidently, being his son didn't count for much. My father clearly had no intention of letting me back in. I took several sharp, jagged breaths, gripping my suitcase as I turned around. There it was, that black honky luxury car with the 88888 plate, a cold symbol of status idling by the curb. Shen Chuhan was waiting in the back seat. She peered at me through the lowered window with a chilling indifference. Is your little tantrum finally over? If you've had your fun, get in. We're going home. A surge of unbridled fury ignited in my chest, solidifying my resolve to never back down again. Did she really think that by cornering me and leaving me nowhere to turn, I'd just crawl back like a dog? I whipped out my phone and dialed a specific number. The call was answered almost instantly, and a woman's pleasantly surprised voice echoed from the receiver. Oppa. Locking eyes with Shen Chuhan's furrowed brow, my lips curled upward. I intentionally softened my tone into a gentle whisper. It's me. Is it convenient for you to come pick me up right now? Exactly 20 minutes. Later, a thunderous engine roar tore through the street. A sleek, flashy silver supercar came screaming toward us. The vehicle screeched to a halt right behind Shen Chuhan's car, and the owner stepped out with effortless style. Her youthful face glowed with vibrant energy under the sun. It was none other than the girl from that night. At the villa, the music major I'd been so cozy with, the college student Xu Xinluo. Oppa, I'm here. Xu Xinluo grinned, flashing her adorable snaggletooth, as she playfully tapped the roof of her car. I didn't let you down, did I, Oppa? I gave her a quick once-over, nodding approvingly, looking sharp. Then I turned to face Shen Chuhan, whose expression was now ghastly. Shen Chuhan, I hope that from this moment on, unless it's for the divorce papers, we never lay eyes on each other again. The hand Shen Chuhan used to grip her prayer beads tightened violently, her knuckles turning white as if she intended to crush the wood to dust. But I completely ignored her and slid into Xu Xinluo's passenger seat. With another deafening roar, the supercar lunged forward, vanishing from sight in a heartbeat. Inside the static honky, the secretary sitting in the driver's seat felt the temperature in the cabin plummet to sub-zero levels. Why did it feel like he was always stuck in the middle of these battlefield tier lovers' quarrels? Between the boss and Mr. Lu, he stole a glance at Shen Chuhan's face and spoke with extreme caution. President Shen, should we pursue them? Shen Chuhan remained stone-faced, descending into a long, suffocating silence. Finally, her chilled, melodic voice broke the silence. Find out exactly where he's going. I want to know who he's with at every single moment. The assistant nodded curtly. Understood. However, things were far from simple. On the first day of my grand departure, the secretary rushed into Shen Chuhan's office, displaying the surveillance photos sent by her men. In the shots, I was pulling Xu Xinluo close by her waist against the supercar, sporting a wild, carefree grin. Shen Chuhan stared at my smiling eyes, pinching the bridge of her nose to suppress her rising irritation. On the second day, the secretary burst in again, sliding yet another photograph across the desk. Deep within the club's VIP lounge, I was decked out in a leather jacket, leaning in close to another stunning young woman who was wearing nothing but a revealing slip dress. The intimacy was undeniable. Shen Chuhan's gaze darkened as her temper flared. Throughout the following week, reports of my wild escapades flooded Shen Chuhan's desk daily, from illegal street racing to high-altitude bungee jumping, and every single day there was a different woman by my side. Inside the office of the Shen Group's Group CEO, the atmosphere grew increasingly suffocating and volatile. By the 8th day, Shen Chuhan received a stern call from her father. What on earth is going on between you and Lu Xian? You aren't a short-sighted person. You should realize the damage these scandals will cause to the reputation of the Shen family business. Even if this was just a political marriage, lacking any real affection, Lu Xian is still the son-in-law of our house. He needs to rein it in and start caring about his public image. Shen Chuhan stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, her expression unreadable and somber. I understand, father. I'll take care of it. The moment she ended the call, she tried to dial my number, but I had long since blacklisted her. The call wouldn't even go through. Staring at the call failed notification on her screen, she grabbed her coat and stormed out. Her assistant approached. President Shen, are you heading home to pack for your retreat at Pudit Temple? Shen Chuhan froze in her tracks. What's today's date? The 18th. The 15th and 16th of every month were her sacred retreat days. She had never once forgotten them before. Yet this time, 3 days had slipped by without her even noticing. Her life had always been a meticulously orchestrated machine, running flawlessly without a single mechanical error. It seemed I was the only variable capable of breaking her rhythm. Shen Chuhan mindlessly toyed with the prayer beads on her wrist, silent for a moment before commanding, "Prep the car." 20 minutes later, Shen Chuhan pulled up to the villa. By this time, Lu Sais had already returned from school. He was perched on the sofa clutching his tablet. Seeing her enter, he uncharacteristically spoke up to stop her. "Mother." Shen Chuhan paused mid-step. "What is it?" Lu Sais went straight for the jugular. "Are you and father actually getting a divorce?" "What makes you ask that?" Shen Chuhan frowned slightly. The socialite circle was tiny. Whenever drama unfolded in a prominent family, it was impossible to keep it hidden for long. Lu Sais, who had grown up surrounded by nothing but absolute respect and fear, was currently being drowned by the whispers behind his back. He thrust the tablet toward her, revealing a massive scandalous headline. Lu family's sole heir Lu Xian, spotted in Sanya flanked by 2 beauties. Shen Group CEO Shen Chuhan's marriage on the rocks. In the photograph beneath the bold text, there I was, arms draped, over Songwani and Xu Xinluo simultaneously, lounging shamelessly on a beach chair. On the other side of the planet, I was hosting a wild yacht party with Songwani and the crew. Men and women of all types were decked out in beachwear and expensive overflowing champagne was being poured onto the deck like it was tap water. I, however, sat tucked away in a chair behind dark shades, boredly chewing on the straw in my cocktail. Songwani approached and sat before me, locking eyes. Why the long face, not joining the fun? Just catching my breath? I lowered my sunglasses and squinted. Youth is a hell of a drug. Unlimited energy. If I hadn't been inexplicably ripped through time to this future, I'd probably be just as wild as those kids right now. But look at me now. I wake up as a married man with a wife who doesn't even love me. How is it possible to be this cursed? Songwani reclined beside me, her smile teasing. You aren't exactly ancient. Don't they say a man is in his prime at 30? But for real though, are you seriously divorcing Shen Chuhan? She's the crown princess of the elite circle. Countless men would kill just for a chance with her. She clicked her tongue in disbelief as she spoke. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. Oh, I definitely outkicked my coverage. I grabbed my glass, offering a mock toast to Songwani. After draining it in one go, I sighed. If I could only warp back 10 years, I wouldn't marry her in a million years. The moment those words left my lips, the yacht steward hurried over. Mr. Liu, someone just arrived by speedboat and is boarding. We didn't dare stop them. Didn't dare? I knit my brows in confusion. Before I could even ask who it was, every single person on the yacht froze mid-motion, their eyes collectively snapping toward the deck entrance. I followed their gaze, only to find Shen Chuhan standing there in high-end couture, fingering her prayer beads with an air of cold regal elegance. Her eyes locked directly onto mine, utterly disregarding everyone else in the room. We need to talk. I was stunned for a heartbeat, then crossed my arms with a mocking smirk. Miss Shen, did you finally finalize that divorce agreement and bring it with you? Shen Chuhan looked blindsided, suddenly remembering the parting shot I'd left her with. Shen Chuhan, from today on, unless it's for the divorce proceedings, don't ever show your face to me again. She had clearly wiped that statement from her mind. Not that it mattered now. Shen Chuhan scanned the crowd with disdain. She had always loathed airing her private grievances in front of an audience, but she could clearly see that I had absolutely zero intention of speaking with her in private. For the first time ever, she chose to yield. Lu Xian, tell me what you want and it's yours. But I will never grant you a divorce. In the past, I lived for this commanding dominant side of her, that regal high and mighty attitude of hers. But now it only fills me with utter disgust and boredom. I turned to the steward and cocked an eyebrow. Exactly how far are we from the shoreline right now? The steward replied, 20 nautical miles, sir. I shifted my gaze back to Shen Chuhan, holding up 2 fingers. 20 miles. If you can swim back to the coast before I do, I'll drop the divorce. The moment the words left my mouth, Song Wanyi was the first to bolt upright. Lucian, have you lost your mind? Even the yacht takes an hour to cover that. Trying to swim back on pure human endurance. You'll either freeze to death or drown from exhaustion halfway. I remained completely unfazed, my eyes practically dripping with provocation. I was betting everything that Shen Chuhan would never agree. After all, this woman never breaks her rules for my sake. However, after a heavy suffocating silence, under the stunned gazes of everyone present, Shen Chuhan actually turned to the steward and said, "Please escort me to a changing room." Holy crap, she's serious. Song Wanyi was stunned, instinctively letting out a shocked curse. I was also completely paralyzed. My only intent was to force Shen Chuhan to back down so she'd just grant me the divorce, not to actually jump into the ocean. Is she insane? Seeing Shen Chuhan really go to change her clothes, I realized I couldn't back out now without losing face. I grabbed Song Wanyi, whispering urgently, "Have people follow us. If things look south, drag both of us back onto the boat immediately." Song Wanyi still looked incredulous. "You're seriously doing this?" "I don't want to, but with all these people watching..." I've been backed into a corner with no choice. Soon Shen Chuhan emerged wearing a swimsuit. Her porcelain skin was exposed to the salty air, revealing a stunningly curvaceous figure, though she usually appeared quite slender in her suits. Once the layers were gone, she clearly had all the right curves in all the right places. But despite her incredible physique, the swimsuit was just a generic one provided by the yacht. The garish multicolored patterns on her looked ridiculously out of place and almost comical. I couldn't help but let out a sharp snicker. Shen Chuhan's expression turned several degrees colder. "Do we start now?" "Yeah, let's get it started." I suppressed my laughter as we stepped onto the deck together. Splash, splash. Two bodies hit the water in perfect synchronization. The deep ocean was bone-chillingly cold. The instant I submerged, a violent shiver racked my body, and the laughter died in my throat. I glanced over at her, but Shen Chuhan's expression remained unshakable. I took a sharp, steadying breath and began to focus all my energy. Even though my physical vessel is 10 years older, I used to be a regular at the swimming club back in the day. There's no way I'm losing to Shen Chuhan, a woman who spends her entire life rotting in an office, right? That was the plan, at least. But when I broke the surface to gasp for air and looked up, I realized I was trailing far behind that woman. No way. This can't be happening, shocked. I summoned every ounce of strength to close the gap. But in the very next second, my calf began to spasm uncontrollably, sending a jolt of agonizing pain through my entire nervous system. Damn it, I didn't warm up before diving in. A cramp, I instinctively reached out to grab something. But in the vast open ocean, there was nothing to hold on to. I immediately screamed for help. "Shen Chuhan, my leg is cramping." Song Wanyi. In my panic, I swallowed several mouthfuls of salt water. I didn't even have time to confirm if Shen Chuhan or Song Wanyi had heard my desperate cries before I began to sink into the abyss. The seawater choked my lungs, crushing the last bit of oxygen out of me. My strength completely evaporated, and I could only watch helplessly as the shimmering surface drifted further and further away. Mr. Lu, who was calling my name. Has someone come to pull me up? The suffocating pressure in my chest vanished instantly. I snapped my eyes open, only to see a man dressed in a sharp suit. What was truly bizarre was that he looked exactly like an older version of me, Mr. Lu. The voice that had been calling me echoed once more, and a strange woman suddenly appeared behind me. "Your hair is finally done. Take a look. Are you satisfied with the result?" "Hairstyle? What hairstyle?" I snapped back to reality, following her gaze forward, only to realize I was standing right in front of a massive mirror, and the man in the sharp suit I had just seen was actually my own reflection. What the hell is going on? Wasn't I just in a life or death swim race against Shen Chuhan? What is this bizarre situation? My throat felt like parched sand. Where am I? The stylist gave a playful chuckle. "Why, you're at your wedding venue, of course." The wedding venue. I practically bolted upright from the chair, letting out a startled cry. The stylist jumped back in fright, stuttering an instinctive reply. Yes. Did you forget? Today is your wedding day with Ms. Shen Chuhan." The wedding, my heart skipped a violent beat. I lunged for my phone to check the status. The screen displayed the date in bold, February 12th, 2025. I've transmigrated back to the very day I married Shen Chuhan. Desperate to confirm this impossible reality, I spun around and sprinted out the door. The stylist screamed from behind, "Mr. Lu, the ceremony. It hasn't even started yet. You can't go out there. It's better that it hasn't started yet." I charged straight to the chapel doors and flung them wide open. Every single person in the hall froze in unison. The entire room fell into a deathly expectant silence. My eyes immediately locked onto the figure center stage. Draped in a stunning white bridal gown, it was Shen Chuhan, looking absolutely radiant. She looked different from the 30-year-old version I knew. Not quite as hardened or mature. Her face still held the subtle innocence of her youth. I really did travel back in time. My heart thundered against my ribs like a trapped bird as I felt the adrenaline surging through my veins. Shen Chuhan approached. "Lucian, the ceremony hasn't begun. You shouldn't be out here yet." I took a deep, liberating breath, my lips curling into a genuine defiant smirk. "You're right. I shouldn't be here." Shen Chuhan paused confused. What do you mean? It means... I reached up and ripped off my tuxedo jacket, hurling it to the floor. This young master is done serving you? And then, under the bewildered gazes of the crowd, I ditched my own wedding on the spot. The brilliant summer sun drenched the earth in a blinding glow as the flower petals falling behind me were swept up by the wind, swirling like a kaleidoscope of butterflies, flying toward the vast open world that finally belonged to me. The guests were paralyzed in a state of utter shock, but the cameras outside began to flash frantically one after another in a relentless frenzy. This union was a monumental event. Ever since Shen Chuhan took the reins of the Shen Group 5 years ago, it was the most anticipated merger in the business world. No one ever imagined the groom would actually pull a disappearing act. My father Lu Zhengting was the first to snap back to his senses, his entire face darkening with a volcanic rage. He whipped his head around, glaring at the row of black-suited bodyguards stationed at the door. What are you waiting for? Get moving and bring him back. Meanwhile, looking over at Shen Chuhan and her parents, their expressions remained as calm as a placid lake, showing not even a flicker of embarrassment. Lu Zhengting exhaled a sharp breath of frustration. I'm so sorry. Xian has always been headstrong and unruly. It's my failure as a father for not disciplining him properly. I'll have my men drag him back here immediately. There's no need for that. Shen Chuhan set her champagne glass down with clinical precision, her tone completely devoid of emotion. Perhaps he just needs more time. I'm not in the habit of forcing people. Let's call it a day. Luo Bin, her assistant Luo Bin stepped forward instantly. President Shen Chuhan began organizing the exit. Make sure the reporters outside delete every single photo. She suppressed the scandal with effortless grace, showing the composure of a true sovereign. Lu Zhengting suddenly understood exactly why Shen Chuhan was able to take over the massive Shen group at the young age of 20. Then thinking of his own son, Lu Zhengting felt a massive migraine coming on. He bowed to Shen Chuhan's parents. My apologies. I will personally bring Xian to your doorstep tomorrow to apologize. The mother-in-law gave a polite thin smile. It's quite all right. Truthfully, this wedding was arranged on a bit of a tight schedule. Young people have their own minds these days. Don't be too hard on Xian for this. Lu Zhengting froze. Then, the marriage. Once Xian clears his head, we'll let the two of them discuss it. The mother-in-law gave a slight nod. We'll be taking our leaving just like that. Father Shen hadn't uttered a single syllable through the entire ordeal, as if he weren't even offended. But Lu Zhengting knew it was merely a facade of high-class etiquette. Their civility was hollow and far from sincere. After all, having the groom desert the wedding was a monumental humiliation for the prestigious Shen family. Zhengting sighed heavily, rushing out to hunt down the runaway. Under Luo Bin's efficient coordination, the venue was cleared out in record time, leaving behind nothing but the extravagant empty decorations and Shen Chuhan. He approached Shen Chuhan cautiously. President Shen, the media outlets have all been effectively silenced. No one will dare to report on what happened today. Shen Chuhan gave a cold, detached hum of approval. Luo Bin hesitated. Should I escort you back home now? Shen Chuhan's icy gaze remained fixed on the discarded item I left behind, the tuxedo jacket I had contemptuously hurled away. After a pause, her chilling voice cut through the silence. Do we have a location on Luxian yet? Meanwhile, after sprinting away from that wedding disaster, I hailed a cab on the curb and fled as fast as possible. The driver took one look at my disheveled state and teased, running away from your wedding, kid. It's not just a wedding. I replied, clutching my chest as my heart hammered. It's an escape from death. The driver took it as a joke. Well then, I guess I'm doing my good deed for the day. Haha, I didn't bother following up on his banter. I stared out the window, feeling the rush of a genuine bone-deep rebirth. Not only had I dodged a doomed and utterly miserable marriage, but being young again felt absolutely incredible. I rolled down the window, letting the sweltering wind whip against my face, as I closed my eyes to savor the pure scent of freedom. Good riddance to that rigid, soulless female monk. 20 minutes later, I frowned at the unfamiliar scenery passing by. Hey man, where the hell are you taking me? The driver chuckled. You never gave me a destination, so I just took you for a joyride. Now about that fare. He picked up his phone and opened the keypad, his finger hovering over the screen. You aren't planning to stiff me, right? The taxi eventually pulled up outside Song Wanyi's villa. Returning to the Lu household was out of the question. Lu Zhengting was likely already fuming and waiting with a mob of guards to ambush me. After weighing my options, Song Wanyi was the only one I could pester. I forked over several $100 as I climbed out of the cab, the driver grinning ear to ear as he thanked me for the tip. I suppressed the urge to curse him out and stepped onto the curb. I walked up to the entrance, but just as I reached for the doorbell, the door swung open from the inside first. Song Wanyi stood there in a high-end designer gown, casually holding a cup of tea in her other hand. Running away from your own wedding truly hits different, especially when you take a grand victory lap around the city first. Shall I organize a full-blown press conference for you too? Don't even go there, I said, waving her off. Then knit my brows while eyeing her flashy outfit. Why are you all dressed up like a high society doll anyway? Young master, did you leave your brain at the altar? Song Wanyi smoothed out her elegant skirt. What else would I be doing? I was attending your wedding, you idiot. On the other hand, pulling a stunt as massive as a runaway groom? Iketet. Aren't you terrified? Your father will skin you alive? I let out a dry, awkward chuckle. Wait, you were there? Then why didn't you stop me or give me a ride? I ended up wasting a fortune on taxi fare because of you. Song Wanyi rolled her eyes hard. Stop you! If I had run out there with you, tomorrow's headlines wouldn't be about you ditching the bride, but about me crashing the wedding to steal the groom. I have zero interest in making an enemy out of Shen Chuhan. As we bickered, I was still roasting under the sun outside. The heat was so intense I felt like I was about to pass out. I shoved past Song Wanyi and marched straight into the living room. Song Wanyi protested from behind me. Hey, what's the deal with you crashing at my place? You might not care about your reputation, but I value mine. I don't need rumors spreading that we're a secret item. Despite her sharp tongue, she didn't make a single move to actually block my path. I sank into the plush sofa, letting the icy air conditioning of the villa wash over me. I finally exhaled a long sigh of pure relief. Look, I'm being attacked from all sides right now. I can't go home and I can't check into a hotel. I just need to lay low until this storm blows over, before I'm brave enough to face my old man again. As I spoke, I suddenly flashed a pitiful puppy dog expression at Song Wanyi. Wanyi Nuna, you'll take pity on me for a couple of days, right? I'm literally homeless and counting on you. Stop right there. Song Wanyi rubbed her arms trying to smooth down her goosebumps. Ugh, I'm seriously terrified of you when you act like this. I flashed a sugary sweet grin. I knew Wanyi Nuna was the best. She walked to the counter to pour some water, her tone turning serious. But for real, just ditching the wedding like that. The Shen family's reputation is in the gutter now. What are you going to do when Shen Chuhan comes for your head? Please, there's no way she's coming after me. I collapsed backward onto the plush sofa. She didn't even want to marry me in the first place. Song Wanyi sat on the edge of the sofa beside me, handing me a glass. If she didn't want it, why agree to the union? This was the most high-profile wedding in the elite circles. There were nearly 100 reporters swarming the place. A sudden, inexplicable chill shivered down my spine. I instinctively glanced toward the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. Song Wanyi found my jittery behavior hilarious. Oh, so now you're feeling the heat. You looked pretty damn cool when you were making your grand exit. This young master is done serving you. She deepened her voice, perfectly mimicking my arrogant tone. She couldn't even finish the sentence before bursting into laughter, clutching her stomach, as she doubled over in sheer hysterics. As the old saying goes, it's not the embarrassment that kills you, but the friend who reminds you of it. I stared at her with a dark, speechless expression. Enough already, it's not that I'm scared. It's just... I suddenly recalled how, in my previous timeline, I was just as certain that Shen Chuhan would never bother looking for me. And yet the very next second she had appeared right before my eyes. That kind of trauma leaves a lasting psychological scar. But Song Wanyi completely ignored my distress, practically rolling on the floor with laughter at my expense. That's when a specific memory surfaced. I crossed my arms and spoke with a detached coolness. By the time you're 32, you'll still be painfully single, and your dad will have frozen every single one of your credit cards. Song Wanyi's laughter cut off as if she'd been choked. She looked at me with pure suspicion. Are you for real? Since when did you start practicing fortune-telling behind my back? The secrets of the universe cannot be revealed so easily. I placed a mysterious finger over my lips, wagging it slowly back and forth. Song Wanyi snorted in total disbelief. The line of guys waiting to date me stretches all the way to France. Me single, not a chance in hell. It's just that nobody meets my high standards. I let out a scoffing laugh. Well then, let's just wait and see. As the words fell, Song Wanyi lapsed into a sudden silence. After a tense beat, she lunged and grabbed my hand. Master, I don't want to wither away in solitude. Please, you have to help me change my fate. Easy fix, I said, flashing 3 fingers. That'll be exactly $388,888. Before I could even finish my sentence, someone tapped sharply on the glass of the living room's floor-to-ceiling window. We both snapped our heads toward the sound in unison. There was Shen Chuhan's assistant, Luobin, pointing toward the front door. His lips moved silently, mouthing, "Terribly sorry about this, but Miss Song, your doorbell seems to be broken." Standing just a few paces behind him was Shen Chuhan herself, taking in every single detail inside the room with a piercing gaze. We both instinctively looked down at our hands still tightly clasped. Song Wanyi panicked. Tomorrow's headline is definitely going to be "Local Socialite Steals Best Friend's Man." I was just playing a little roleplay with my bestie, only to be busted by his terrifying fiancée. Help, I'm officially traumatized for life. From now on, I am never, and I mean never, saying that there's no way Shen Chuhan would come looking for me. I swallowed hard, my throat feeling like sandpaper. Is it too late to make a run for it? Song Wanyi's lips twitched into a stiff, awkward grimace. My house doesn't have a back exit. Where do you plan on running to? And can you please take me with you? We both yanked our hands back as if we'd been electrocuted. I tried to play it cool, smoothing out the wrinkles of my disheveled and messy dress shirt. Song Wanyi braced herself, rising to open the front door. As the door swung wide, Shen Chuhan's cold, ethereal features came into sharp focus. "Sorry for the intrusion," she began. "I'm here to collect Lu Xian." Her voice was eerily calm. Yet I couldn't stop a violent shiver from racking my body. Wait, what am I even afraid of? I'm technically a single man right now, and I don't owe her a single cent. What is there to fear? Besides, I managed to handle the 33-year-old Shen Chuhan, so surely I can dominate this 25-year-old version. Gathering my courage for one final stand, I bolted upright and roared at Shen Chuhan. "That's right. I ditched the wedding, I'm a runaway. And I have zero intention of going back with you. What are you going to do about it?" The villa instantly plunged into a deafening silence. 3 pairs of eyes locked onto me simultaneously, each reflecting a vastly different emotion. Song Wanyi pressed her palm against her forehead in utter despair. Luobin tactfully averted his gaze elsewhere, pretending his ears hadn't just witnessed a disaster. Only Shen Chuhan kept her eyes fixed on me perfectly still. There was no trace of judgment nor a hint of rage. Finally she spoke. "The ceremony has merely been postponed. I didn't come here to drag you back by force." She said, "Postponed, not cancelled." So my eyebrows shot up in disbelief. "Then what the hell are you even doing here?" Shen Chuhan replied indifferently, "I'm here to confirm the new date for our rescheduled wedding with you." I froze in my tracks. It was almost too absurd to process. You still actually want to go through with this?" Shen Chuhan seemed genuinely unable to grasp why I would even ask such a ridiculous question. "We are officially engaged." Her subtext was clear, since the engagement is set in stone. Isn't getting married just the natural next step? It took a few agonizing seconds for the gravity of her logic to sink in. I suddenly realized that the 25-year-old Shen Chuhan was infinitely more difficult to handle than her older self. Perhaps it was because she hadn't been fully jaded by the cutthroat corporate world yet. I took a sharp, stabilizing breath and enunciated every single word. "No, what I mean is, I have no intention of ever marrying you. Do you understand? I'm done. I am officially calling off this marriage." Song Wanyi watched from the sidelines, jaw dropped and stunned, silently giving my suicidal bravery a thumbs up in her head. Shen Chuhan's brow knit together in a tight scowl. "And your reason, is it because of her?" Her icy gaze shifted directly onto Song Wanyi. "No, absolutely not." Song Wanyi frantically waved her hands, backing away in a panic. "I barely even know this guy. He's practically a squatter. He broke into my house. I was literally just about to call the cops on him." I shot her the most murderous glare I could muster. "Song Wanyi, you are absolutely heartless." I shifted my gaze back to Shen Chuhan, unable to fathom why the current version of her remained so stubbornly persistent. It was understandable for the 33-year-old Shen Chuhan to refuse a divorce because of the family or the child, but what could possibly motivate the 25-year-old version? There's no spark of affection between us, and certainly no child to consider. An absurd wild theory flashed through my mind, and I cautiously let the words slip out. "Don't tell me. You actually have feelings for me." Shen Chuhan's gaze turned frosty, and she remained silent this time. But I could read her expression as clear as day. Is that even possible? If it's not love, then why won't she just let me walk away? I took a deep breath to settle my nerves. "Look, it's like this. You clearly don't like me either, and a loveless marriage is destined to end in disaster. I'm actually doing us both a massive favor by stopping this. Besides, we're a terrible match. I'm far too reckless and wild, and I loathe being controlled, so let's just drop it." "What do you say?" Before Shen Chuhan could even respond, Luobin suddenly spoke up with uncharacteristic agitation. "Mr. Lu, you were the one who broke President Shen's vow? How can you say something so incredibly irresponsible?" "Luobin." Shen Chuhan's cold voice sharply cut him off. Luobin bit his lip and turned away, falling into a sulk. I was utterly baffled. I broke her vow. What kind of vow did I supposedly break? When the hell did I ever make her break a vow? Song Wanyi, however, let out a sharp audible gasp and stared at me in total shock. "Wait, did you actually sleep with Shen Chuhan?" That single sentence sent my brain into a total tailspin. What kind of nonsense are you barking? There is no way that's possible. But those final words died in my throat when I realized that Shen Chuhan had absolutely no intention of denying it. The silence was deafening. It can't be. This is literally impossible, right? I raised my hands, palms out to ward them off, while the other hand clutched my aching head. "Hold on. Give me a few minutes." During my first leap, I jumped from 20 to 30, but this second time, I've warped from 30 back to 22. Since ditching the altar, I haven't had a single chance to sort through the missing gap of these 2 years. 2 years of memories. It should be far easier to process than a whole decade. I quickly scavenged through those unfamiliar fragments. I first crossed paths with Shen Chuhan when I was 20. She definitely left a lingering impression on me back then, but I was too busy being a reckless playboy, and I quickly tossed her to the back of my mind. It wasn't until a year later that our paths crossed again. My crew and I were partying at a club until the dead of night. After the party dispersed, everyone headed their separate ways. I remember collapsing against a roadside flower bed, and then I woke up the next morning in a hotel suite. The memories in between were a total blackout. Later, Father Lu insisted on a strategic alliance with the Shens. I was dead set against it, until I was dragged to meet the Shen couple and Chuhan. That was when I discovered that a year prior, the person who had saved my drunk self was Shen Chuhan. The seed buried deep in my heart suddenly sprouted. The moment I got home, I told my father I was ready to marry. But wait, when exactly did I sleep with her? Seeing that I was drawing a total blank, Shen Chuhan suddenly broke the silence. August 27th. The Venice Hotel. I froze. Isn't that the exact night my memory cut out? Did I actually sleep with Shen Chuhan while wasted? I hesitated, a hard lump forming in my throat. Listen, I had a total blackout that night. Shen Chuhan's stoic expression finally flickered with a hint of emotion at that moment. A shadow of frost seemed to settle over her features. Are you saying you don't recall a single thing? I instinctively recoiled a couple of steps. Only after retreating did I realize how bizarre this plot twist was. Why do I feel like some low-life scumbag who slept with an innocent girl and is now being hunted down for child support? I lowered my hands, testing the waters with extreme caution. You wouldn't actually force me to take responsibility, right? You're not that kind of person, surely. Shen Chuhan's face grew even more deathly pale. Lobin finally reached his breaking point. He suppressed his temper to explain, Mr. Lu, President Shen is a practitioner of Zen and a devout lay Buddhist. While marriage is permitted under her vows, abandonment and betrayal are strictly forbidden. Since you were the one who broke her vow, she is bound to marry only you in this lifetime. No other man can ever cross her threshold again. The words escaped my lips before I could stop them. So, I'm basically being extorted. Lobin's expression instantly became a complex mess of disbelief, but I was too preoccupied with a sudden realization. I asked, does that mean she can't get a divorce either? Lobin nodded grimly. Exactly. It all makes sense now. No wonder. No wonder the 33-year-old Shen Chuhan preferred to have 20 kids, rather than entertain the thought of signing divorce papers. After a moment of contemplation, I stepped forward and, like I was greeting one of the boys, casually slapped a hand onto Shen Chuhan's shoulder. Look, we're all modern, open-minded people of the new century. It was a consensual encounter. I'm not holding a grudge, so I'm sure the Buddha will find it in his heart to forgive you. You don't need to carry such a heavy psychological burden. And if you're absolutely desperate for a husband, I've got just the guy to recommend. Your father has a close friend named Pei, right? He has a son, Pei Jingji, a true refined and gentle gentleman of the elite class. He's a perfect match for you. I honestly think if you two got together... Shen Chuhan cut me off with a voice of pure ice. Lu Xian, not everyone treats life like a meaningless game as you do. She looked genuinely livid now. I instantly yanked my hand back and retreated to my safe zone. I pouted defensively. I was totally wasted that night. There's no way I had the physical coordination to do anything. It had to be you who made the first move. It's not like I forced myself on you, right? Lu Xian! Shen Chuhan roared, her voice dropping an octave. The sheer intensity of her rage sent a violent shiver down my spine. I couldn't believe it. I stammered, wait, it wasn't actually by force, was it? Trying to wrap my head around this in under 10 minutes was a nightmare. The fact that I didn't just sleep with her, but that I supposedly forced the issue, it was too much. But the reality was far more absurd than my wildest imagination. Shen Chuhan remembered every single detail of that night. She was scheduled for a red-eye flight to the States early that morning for a high-stakes meeting, so she had stayed at a hotel near the airport for convenience. She had already turned in for the night. Suddenly, someone started relentlessly swiping a keycard at her door. Shen Chuhan marched over to confront the intruder, intent on seeing who was causing the ruckus. The moment the door swung open, I collapsed onto her like a man without a single bone in his body. The overwhelming stench of alcohol mixed with a cloying sweet cologne created an indescribable aroma that hit her all at once, making her knit her brows in immediate disgust. She gripped my shoulders firmly to shove me away. Sir, you have the wrong room. Hearing her voice, I looked up with a hazy, unfocused gaze. I studied her face with painstaking intensity, then suddenly beamed. Wait, I know you. You're the one from back at Looming Mountain. Shen Chuhan recognized me as well. I was notorious within the elite social circles. The legendary playboy and hedonistic scion Lu Xian. Among the rich heirs, I was the most reckless, wild, and utterly uncontrollable. A man who defied every social norm. Taking advantage of her momentary silence, I slipped through her grasp like a greased eel and darted straight into the hotel suite, flopping onto her pristine bed in a giant X shape. Shen Chuhan was a notorious germaphobe. She instinctively clenched her fists at the sight, but thanks to her rigid upbringing and years of Zen meditation, she didn't actually explode in anger. She merely felt a wave of profound helplessness, lacking any experience on how to deal with someone who acted so completely outside the bounds of reason. Shen Chuhan pondered her options and decided to call the front desk, intending for them to escort this drunken man who had stumbled into the wrong suite back to his own quarters. But the moment she reached for the receiver, two powerful arms locked firmly around her waist. Her back was suddenly pressed against a wall of radiating heat. I had somehow ditched my shoes and crept up behind her, without making a single sound. I buried my face against her back, my voice a low gravelly rasp. Why aren't you coming to bed? I've been waiting for you forever. Shen Chuhan's immediate thought was that I must have a girlfriend I was mistaken her for. Her second reaction was to pry my hands off and re-establish a safe distance. She even attempted to use logic with me. Sir, look at me properly. I am definitely not your girlfriend. Besides, you've stumbled into the wrong room. But I clung to her like a leech, refusing to let go. Let's just sleep. I'm exhausted. Stop being noisy. Shen Chuhan checked the time. She only had 4 hours left before she had to be at the airport. She simply couldn't afford to waste any more of her precious time on a pathetic drunken mess of a man. So enduring the pungent scent radiating from me, she shoved me onto the bed, slammed the door shut, and curled up on the sofa to rest. Shen Chuhan had never shared a room with anyone before. Logically, she shouldn't have fallen asleep so defenselessly. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, she drifted into a deep slumber almost instantly. When she finally woke, it was because I was making a move. I was half-naked pinning her down, while her wrists were lashed to the sofa corner with my own tie. Shen Chuhan could never erase that vivid image from her mind. She felt as though she were being roasted alive. Yet the body hovering over her felt like soothing, cool water. Watching Shen Chuhan's expression darken, I realized this entire situation wasn't going to be easily swept under the rug. But even if we actually did the deed, I've jumped 2 years ahead, I have no memory of it, and I don't even remember what she felt like. Taking the fall for something I don't even remember doing, is a total ripoff. Recalling the miserable married life I endured with her, a violent shiver racked my very soul. I have to sever all ties with Shen Chuhan once and for all. With all due respect, if you truly can't bring yourself to accept another man, you could always just embrace the single life until you rot. I let out a dry, cynical scoff. Either way, there's no shot I'm marrying you. Shen Chuhan's fingers hanging at her side curled into a tight, trembling fist. Give me one single reason that's actually convincing. I took a sharp breath. I'm sorry, but I've become a devout Christian. Our conflict of faith, Jesus and Buddha, neither would ever give us their blessing. The moment that lie left my lips, the silence in the living room became more deathly and suffocating than ever before. Whenever I spin a web of lies, I can never bring myself to look the other person in the eye. So right before I spoke, I shifted my gaze toward the floor. Truth be told, this entire scene was beyond bizarre. I was standing there in a disheveled, rumpled suit, while Shen Chuhan remained draped in her white mermaid bridal gown. Beside us, Song Wanyi and Luo Bin were still in their formal evening wear, making it look like we were some couple who had eloped and dragged 2 witnesses along to hold a secret makeshift wedding ceremony. I'm exhausted. The sticky feeling of dried sweat on my skin is unbearable. I definitely need a shower first. So ignoring the chaotic mix of expressions on their faces, I spun around and headed toward the second floor guest room, shouting back as I walked, Song Wanyi, have someone buy me a few sets of new clothes. And get ready, cause I'm heading out tonight. As the words left my mouth, Shen Chuhan tilted her head and shot a chilling look at Song Wanyi. Song Wanyi nearly fainted on the spot and stammered, It's like this. I owe him money. That's why he's treating me like his personal maid. I swear there is absolutely nothing else going on between us. She was likely cursing me out in her head at the same time. If you want to dig your own grave, could you please not drag me down with you? However, Shen Chuhan didn't say a word. She simply gave Luo Bin a subtle, meaningful glance. Luo Bin immediately pulled a set of keys from his bag and handed them over to Song Wanyi. President Shen owns a property over at Shanyunyan. For the duration of Mr. Lu's stay here, you are more than welcome to reside at Shanyunyan. All related expenses will be fully covered by President Shen. Song Wanyi froze in confusion. Wait, why? Luo Bin intentionally raised his voice so I could hear. The engagement stands. Mr. Lu is still President Shen's fiancée, and as such, she will personally cover every single one of his expenses. I tried my best to pretend I didn't hear that, but as I reached the very last step of the stairs, I stumbled over my own feet. I ducked into the room without looking back and slammed the door. Leaning my weight against the door panel, I let out a long, heavy exhale. Shen Chuhan is officially insane. I've already made my stance crystal clear, yet she remains completely unfazed by my rejection. She even wants to pay for my entire lifestyle just because we spent one night together. How the hell did I become the one she can't let go? If Shen Chuhan is actually in love with me, then maybe I could consider giving it a shot. But I've already witnessed the tragic wreckage of our future marriage. She didn't fall for me in 8 years, so there's zero chance of it happening now. Shen Chuhan is nothing more than a total, soulless, emotionless block of wood. In that fleeting moment, I genuinely wish she was just any other woman. The kind where it's over actually means it's over. Besides, when you look at the facts, as a pure-hearted guy with the soul of a 20-year-old, aren't I the one getting the short end of the stick? I lost my first time without even feeling it. And I don't remember a damn thing about it. I scrubbed off the date in the shower and collapsed face up on the bed, utterly drained and bone-tired. My phone tossed carelessly to the side, vibrated for the umpteenth time, but I remained completely oblivious to the noise. Seconds later, another missed call joined the long list, every single one of them from the same person, my father Lu Zhengting. I finally succumbed to the delayed exhaustion and drifted off. My father is probably livid because of the wedding stunt, but right before I ditched the altar, I was back at that 30-year-old milestone, just finishing up a wild party. Then came that bizarre race against Shen Chuhan where I drowned. If I'd known death was a one-way ticket to time travel, I would have dived into that abyss much sooner. If only I could go back to when I was 20 then. A split second before falling into a deep sleep, my eyes snapped wide open. If a near-death experience triggers a transmigration, then do I have a shot at returning to the very beginning? Should I try taking the plunge one more time? I sat up weighing the actual feasibility of this insane plan. The last thing I want is for the leap to fail, and end up accidentally deleting myself for good. While I was lost in thought, a sharp knock echoed through the door. A young male voice drifted in. Mr. Lu, I've been sent by Miss Shen to look after you. She asked me to deliver some fresh clothes for you. Is now a good time to take them? I was only draped in a thin bathrobe, the belt not even loosely tied, when I swung the door open. But the person standing there wasn't the man who spoke. Instead, I was met with Shen Chuhan's cold, impassive face. Our eyes locked instantly. It was obvious that even the stoic Shen Chuhan didn't expect to be greeted by such a scandalous sight, leaving her momentarily stunned. The moment I snapped out of it, my instinct was to slap her, but then I remembered who I was dealing with. Drawing from my past life's agonizing experiences, I knew exactly how to get under Shen Chuhan's skin and annoy her. So I leaned casually against the doorframe, half exposed, and let a smirk play on my lips. It's not like you haven't seen this before. Why the blushing face? Or are you dying to have a little refresher of that night? Shen Chuhan didn't utter a single syllable. She simply turned on her heel and marched downstairs. Only then did the man standing behind her finally become visible. He looked incredibly awkward, having clearly overheard our banter. He handed me the clothes with both hands trembling slightly, before turning to make a hasty exit himself. As he descended the stairs, he didn't forget to call out, Mr. Lu, please let me know whenever you're ready for dinner. The smirk froze right on my face. I'm totally screwed. That poor kid probably thinks Shen Chuhan and I are some kind of passionately in love couple. If that rumor gets out, the consequences are too terrifying to imagine. I slammed the door shut once more, and retreated into the bathroom for a proper scrub. After drying off, I inspected the outfit that man had delivered. One glance was all it took for me to scowl in disgust. What century did this come from? Who on earth wears sleeves this ridiculously long? It turns out Shen Chuhan is even more of a traditionalist than I thought. I tutted, grabbed a pair of scissors from the cabinet, and snip-snapped the sleeves off in a few aggressive strokes. Folks, Ichis. Only then did I head out feeling the exhaustion of the day's chaos. It was now the golden hour of twilight. The vibrant fiery clouds bled through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a glow over Shen Chuhan as she sat on the sofa, buried in her endless mountains of work. The light gilded her silhouette in a regal, shimmering halo. As absurd as it felt, she looked like a literal goddess descending from the heavens. I stomped my way down the stairs. Why the hell are you still hanging around here? And where's Song Wanyi? Shen Chuhan didn't even bother to look up, replying coldly. Your father ordered me to watch you. Song Wanyi left for Shan Yunyan. This bossy attitude was a carbon copy of her 33-year-old self. I cursed that traitor Song Wanyi in my head, and reached for my phone, intent on giving her a piece of my mind. That's when I finally noticed it. A staggering 40 missed calls from Lu Zhengting, with the most recent one logged an hour ago. He hadn't attempted to call since then. I figured Shen Chuhan must have reached out to him, assuring him I'd been found, which made him back off. Then I saw a text message from Lu Zhengting. Don't you dare run wild again, or I will personally skin you alive. I collapsed onto the opposite sofa, totally deflated, muttering more to myself than anyone else. I'm seriously starting to doubt I'm actually his biological son. Shen Chuhan still didn't spare a single glance in my direction, but she chimed in anyway. I beg to differ. From numerous perspectives, your resemblance to Uncle Lu suggests a very clear blood tie. I shot a lazy sideways look at her. My old man only told you to keep an eye on me, not to put me under house arrest, right? Shen Chuhan finally shifted her gaze away from her documents, reaching for her smartphone instead. Uncle Lu sent me a comprehensive blacklist. It's a detailed list of things you are strictly forbidden from doing. For instance, hitting up the clubs, illegal street racing, and staying out all night, among others. On what grounds? I bolted upright, fuming. Who do you think you are, controlling me like this? I already told you I'm not marrying you. Shen Chuhan, isn't this obsessive stalking getting a bit pathetic? I bet Shen Chuhan never imagined that anyone in this lifetime would ever dare to use the term obsessive stalker to describe her. She silently tightened her grip on her prayer beads, seemingly relying on her years of disciplined cultivation to suppress the surging waves of emotion rising within her. After a tense silence, she met my furious glare and spoke with a chilling edge. Lucian, do you ever consider the fallout before you act? When you pulled that runaway groom stunt, Did it ever cross your mind how the media coverage would devastate the reputations of both our families? If you were so against this marriage, you shouldn't have agreed to it from the start. I would never have forced your hand. But now you've left yourself zero room for regret. I gasped in disbelief. So you're going for forceful love now? Shen Chuhan froze for 2 seconds, her brow knitting together. What on earth is forceful love? She had a gut feeling that it wasn't a compliment, making the words difficult for her to even utter. I wasn't exactly in the mood to give her a vocabulary lesson. I took a sharp breath. If marrying you means I have to stop being myself and doing what I love, then why on earth would I ever say I do? If you expect me to abandon my passions, what are you willing to sacrifice? Can you stop pestering me? Shen Chuhan's brow furrowed deeper, clearly perplexed. Does marriage and having a social life really have to conflict? Then why the hell can't I go out and have fun? My heart was practically throbbing with pure frustration. This is my lifestyle. This is my freedom. But your hobbies are far from healthy. Those activities only provide a fleeting, momentary spike in your dopamine levels. They can never provide you with genuine, lasting fulfillment. Shen Chuhan paused for a beat. If you pursued some wholesome, constructive interests, I wouldn't dream of stopping you, Lucian. Such as early to bed, early to rise. A clean, balanced diet? No binge drinking, no all-nighters, just writing and reading. I laughed in sheer disbelief. And since what age exactly have you had these thrilling hobbies? Shen Chuhan actually tilted her head, giving it serious thought. Ever since I can remember. I stood up to head upstairs. I couldn't stand to hear another single word. I was a fool for trying to use logic with a literal piece of driftwood. The higher I climbed the stairs, the more my blood boiled. I came to a dead halt, whirling around to shout at Shen Chuhan, "You are utterly, painfully boring." Then I stormed back into my room, slamming the door so hard it shook the frame. But the moment the door clicked shut, my expression shifted. I wasn't actually that triggered. By throwing that little tantrum, Shen Chuhan surely wouldn't come up to disturb me again. As long as she doesn't physically see me vanish, I'm golden. I immediately whipped out my phone and messaged Song Wanyi. Get over here and pick me up ASAP. I've scouted the perimeter. I can jump from the guest room balcony into the back garden, and then hop the fence to freedom. Song Wanyi was absolutely floored. Young master, haven't you caused enough chaos for one day? What if Shen Chuhan catches you red-handed? What's the matter, you scared? I shot back. Song Wanyi took the bait instantly, her pride stung. I was scared. Please, who do you think you're talking to? I'll be the one laughing when I pull this off. First book the tickets. Then hire 2 gorgeous girls for me. I paused, rethinking my request. Then deleted the text and typed, forget the 20 girls. Just performers, strictly talent, no funny business. After setting my phone down, my eyes scanned the room, settling on the heavy curtains. Downstairs, Shen Chuhan sat there, still reeling from my insults, massaging her throbbing temples. It wasn't the first time she'd been called boring. Back in her school days, her classmates were intimidated by her prestigious status and never dared to breathe a word to her face. But she wasn't deaf to the whispers behind her back, especially the petty rumors spread by the boys, whose confessions she had coldly rejected. But Shen Chuhan never felt the sting of anger. She would hear the gossip and immediately let it fade, never allowing those words to graze her heart. Her life was supposed to be just like that, orderly, predictable, and perfectly mundane, until I crashed into her world. I was like a chaotic virus invading her system, rewriting every line of her life's code. Even now, she felt like she was being dragged along in my wake. If it hadn't been for that fateful night, we would have remained 2 people from entirely different worlds, likely never crossing paths for the rest of our lives. The clock ticked away, an hour passing in a heartbeat. The attendant Shen Chuhan hired a guy named Xiao Wu, had finished preparing the evening meal. He carefully gauged the frostiness on Shen Chuhan's face, before speaking in a hushed, cautious tone. Ms. Shen, dinner is served. Shall I go upstairs and summon Mr. Lu? Shen Chuhan recalled my explosive temper from earlier. She stood up. I'll handle it. She headed up to the 2nd floor and knocked firmly on the guest room door, but there was only a hollow silence in response. She tried the handle and pressed down, but the door was bolted shut from the inside. Is he really still sulking? She turned back toward the stairs, instructing Xiao Wu, just leave it for now. When he's finally ready to eat, prepare a fresh serving. Before she could finish her sentence, her phone let out a sharp, sudden vibration. A notification from her special interest popped up. Lucian just posted a new update. I was lounging on a plush leather sofa at the club, tossing back a glass of neat whiskey. And then, I scanned the lineup of women before me with a grin. They had every single type you could imagine. From the innocent-looking college girls, to the sultry, sophisticated femme fatale, and even a few bold, edgy beauties. I beckoned the most alluring one over, and she immediately snuggled up to me purring, "Hey, handsome." I nodded in total satisfaction. But just as I was about to speak, my phone buzzed violently. I carelessly swiped the lock screen and checked my feed, only to see a notification at the very top, Shen Chuhan, liked your post. My hand shook so hard from the shock that I nearly drenched the girl next to me. In my earlier hype, I had snapped a group photo of all 20 women and uploaded it straight to my social media, It completely slipped my mind that I actually had Shen Chuhan on my friend list. I totally forgot to block her Song Wanyi. I shoved the phone into her lap like it was a live grenade. If Shen Chuhan shows up here later, tell her you were the one who took that photo and posted it. Song Wanyi nearly choked on her drink. Are you serious, young master? I agreed to sneak you out. But I never agreed to be your literal sacrificial lamb. Besides, my preferences are perfectly normal. Why would I surround myself with 20 women for fun? Also, isn't Shen Chuhan a devout Zen practitioner? There's no way she'd step foot in a den of sin like this club. I shook my head grimly. You don't know her at all. In my past life, I was just as naive as you are now. But Shen Chuhan still strolled into that bar without batting an eye. It's not that she's forbidden from entering places like this. She simply finds them beneath her. Song Wanyi let out a scoff. What are you so terrified of anyway? You've already ditched the wedding and called off the marriage. Since you're dead set on not marrying her, why are you shaking? I paused for a second. Suddenly, her words made perfect sense. Yeah, what exactly am I afraid of? I'm a free single man. You're absolutely right. I felt my racing heart finally settle back into my chest, and my expression relaxed significantly. I raised my glass to the beauty beside me and clinked it. Come on. Bottoms up. She giggled and drained the glass instantly. While I'd never actually catch feelings for a girl like this, I truly believe this is the gold standard for a girlfriend. They're gorgeous, sweet, and actually fun to be around. They either follow your lead, or they prioritize your happiness above all else. That's the total opposite of Shen Chuhan, that isolated, frigid, and utterly soul-crushing gabor. Boris is so... why the hell am I thinking about her again? I gave my head a violent shake, convinced that I just hadn't reached the right buzz yet. I poured myself another stiff drink, exhaled a cloud of frustration, and directed my next words towards Song Wanyi. I don't think dragging this out is going to end well. Shen Chuhan clearly has no intention of scrapping this engagement. I have a nasty feeling that if this continues, my old man will literally bind me in chains to finish that wedding. Song Wanyi sighed. You really picked the wrong person to mess with. Why did it have to be someone as terrifying as Shen Chuhan? I thought to myself, would you even believe me if I told you the truth? It was the me from a year ago who provoked her. Yet I'm the one suffering without having tasted a single perk. I narrowed my eyes, lost in a drunken haze. To be honest, since my memory of that night is a total void, I'm actually dying of curiosity. I wonder what it's actually like to sleep with Shen Chuhan. If I could get around to... I wonder if 3,000 a night would seal the deal. Suddenly, Song Wanyi's face paled and stiffened. She let out two very deliberate forced coughs. Years of shared trouble and survival instinct instantly screamed at me that a predator was closing in. I shoved the girl aside, ditched my glass, and bolted upright, ready to make a run for it. Oh crap, I just remembered I have, business. I gotta bounce, see ya. Before I could even look up to escape, an icy slender hand clamped down on my wrist from directly behind me. Then, Shen Chuhan's chillingly calm voice echoed exactly as I feared. Leaving so soon? Then let's head back together. A devil? She's a literal haunting succubus. Before I could even protest, the sultry girl beside me jumped to her feet and grabbed Shen Chuhan's wrist aggressively. Hey gorgeous, where did you crawl out from? Even if you want a piece of him, you've gotta wait in line. Can't you see this whole crowd is waiting on him? She gestured toward the row of women behind Shen Chuhan. She had actually mistaken Shen Chuhan for just another club girl. I couldn't resist glancing back at Shen Chuhan, and sure enough, her expression was absolutely livid. I burst into a fit of uncontrollable laughter. Song Wanyi immediately scurried further away on the sofa, acting like she didn't know this man, like we were total strangers. But I leaned in closer, brazenly patting Shen Chuhan on the shoulder. What's it gonna be? If you want to play with me, you've gotta beat them first. Though I must say you do have that pale and icy look down. Shen Chuhan remained stone-faced and silent. How about this? I struggled to suppress my grin. Outshine all of them, and I'll leave with you. What do you say? Shen Chuhan's countenance darkened into a bottomless abyss. I felt a surge of wicked excitement. I was dying to see any other emotion break through that frozen mask. A truly devilish idea sparked in my mind. While the crowd held its collective breath, I reached out and stroked Shen Chuhan's cheek, simultaneously sliding my other arm around her waist. Curling my lips into a smirk, I whispered, beat them and I'll give you 15,000. That's a way more than any of these girls are getting. The women standing behind her couldn't help but let a flash of pure envy flicker in their eyes. They thought this newcomer was worth a damn fortune. Apparently the market currently craves the cold beauty type. A few of them even tried to mimic her icy stare, hoping to catch my eye without offending their employer. It was a delicate, awkward balance to strike. Lucian? A spark of genuine rage finally ignited in Shen Chuhan's eyes. Do you find this entertaining? I regretfully withdrew my hand. Well, if you're not game, then there's nothing more to discuss. I flopped back onto the sofa, draping my arm around the sultry girl's neck. You're coming with me tonight. The girl was over the moon, nodding frantically. Of course. Whatever you say, big brother. See that, take notes. I shot a mocking glance up at Shen Chuhan. You have to be submissive to be loved, don't you know? Standing right behind. Shen Chuhan Luobin looked like he was about to combust. He could hardly fathom seeing his boss this genuinely enraged. Meanwhile, one of the other women, seeing Shen Chuhan's silence, reached out and tapped her on the arm. She lowered her voice and whispered, "Listen, sis. 15,000 is a massive payday. If you've already entered this industry, don't be so stiff. If you just agree to it, the rest of us will back you up." Luobin finally reached his limit. "President Shen, perhaps we should just leave first." The women all exchanged bewildered glances. A president doing this kind of side hustle? Since when did this industry get so competitive? I didn't lift a single finger, just sat back to enjoy the chaotic spectacle. Deep down, I knew I was crossing a line. But Shen Chuhan brought this on herself by meddling in my life. He's right, President Shen. If you don't beat it now, tomorrow's front page headline will be about the CEO of the Shen Group, moonlighting as a club hostess. I shot her a provocative, cocky smirk, and mockingly toasted her with my glass. But as soon as those words hit the air, the 20 women instantly lost their cool. The CEO of the legendary Shen Group, they were doomed. What had they just said to her? Would they all be blacklisted by tomorrow? Especially the woman who had just offered to help Shen Chuhan out. She was literally trembling with pure terror. Their reaction left me feeling totally unsatisfied. They didn't have an ounce of professional grit. How could they be so terrified of one Shen Chuhan? Even I'm not afraid of her. Suddenly, the thrill of the prank vanished into thin air. I pulled out a thick stack of cash and tossed it on the table. "Take the money and get out of here." The women glanced at each other hesitantly until the first person reached for a bill, and then the rest followed suit without looking back. Only the sultry beauty by my side didn't budge. I raised an eyebrow. "Why are you still here?" Though she was clearly intimidated by the atmosphere, she summoned her courage and stayed put. "I'm with you, big brother." My mood instantly brightened again. "What's your name?" She hesitated before answering, "Lucy." "But my real name is Xia Weiliang." I nodded in approval. "Fine. Xia Weiliang, you're coming with me." I grabbed my jacket and stood up, continuing to ignore Shen Chuhan's murderous expression. I brushed past her without a single word. Xia Weiliang hesitated for a beat before following me out. Song Wanyi expected Shen Chuhan to block my path. But even as my silhouette vanished from the bar, Shen Chuhan didn't make a single move to stop me. She felt a flicker of genuine surprise. "Aren't you going to chase him?" Shen Chuhan glanced at her coldly. "He has no desire to return home with me." Perhaps it was the liquid courage from the alcohol, or maybe because she had faced off with Shen Chuhan a few times, realizing that this legendary woman actually wasn't the monster the rumors made her out to be. Song Wanyi's confidence suddenly spiked. "When you stand there like a block of ice, issuing orders in that demanding tone, of course he's going to refuse to follow you. I've known Xian for countless years. Nothing triggers him more than being controlled or told what to do. That's exactly why he and his father are constantly at each other's throats." Shen Chuhan remained enveloped in a heavy silence. Song Wanyi didn't mind, but don't worry. He's not actually the type to go off the deep end. He'll likely ditch that girl the moment they step outside. She was trying her best to salvage my reputation. But to her shock, Shen Chuhan simply replied, "I know. That night we spent together was a ridiculous, chaotic accident." But a woman like Shen Chuhan isn't the type to marry someone on a random whim. Right after the incident that night, Shen Chuhan had immediately ordered a deep dive into my past. Every piece of evidence she gathered proved that while I might be a guy who loves to party, I actually took great pride in my personal boundaries. I had never been the type to have casual flings with just anyone. From the very beginning, Shen Chuhan never once branded me as a typical playboy over that one night. She refuses to judge a person without seeing the full picture first. That's exactly why she didn't physically stop me from leaving. She knew I wouldn't actually cross the line. Song Wanyi was momentarily stunned. "So you've been secretly investigating Xian?" Shen Chuhan gave a non-committal nod. "Vetting? My future husband is only standard procedure." But there was one thing Song Wanyi couldn't grasp. "But you don't even love him. It feels like you're just treating this marriage like another business task. You're dead set on marrying him. But a loveless marriage is destined to crumble." Shen Chuhan looked at her indifferently. "My parents were in alliance too. In our world, whose marriage isn't..." Song Wanyi slumped her shoulders, feeling defeated. "My parents were the same. And because of that, I had a front row seat to their absolute misery." Her eyes suddenly pulled with a profound, aching sadness, and her voice instinctively dropped to a soft whisper. "I will never ever be able to forget the final words my mother spoke on her deathbed. She said that, despite living a life of luxury and ease, her biggest regret was ever marrying my father. Xian's parents were also a cold, strategic alliance. When his mother was withered by illness, his father didn't bother to visit her even once. In the end, she passed away consumed by resentment. So if you expect a guy like him to accept a hollow, loveless marriage, then you're chasing a total impossibility." Shen Chuhan's brow knitted in confusion. Then why did he personally agree? To the engagement. Song Wanyi paused for a beat, her expression turning suspicious. "Wait, you really didn't know he was in love with you? Ever since you saved his life 2 years ago, he's been head over heels for you." Shen Chuhan remembered the incident. but she had never given it a second thought. To someone like her, ignoring someone in mortal danger was a cardinal sin. She had simply done what any decent human would do. Song Wanyi continued her explanation. I tried to warn him back then not to be so impulsive. After all, a one-sided unrequited obsession is far more painful than a simple business merger. But he didn't listen to a single word I said. Yet now he suddenly wakes up and ditches the wedding. In Shen Chuhan's cold world, the word like didn't exist, and love was a completely foreign concept. She frowned deeply, her thoughts racing, before hesitantly voicing her conclusion. So, he's calling off the marriage because he no longer loves me. For the first time, Song Wanyi realized that in this massive world, there truly are people who are this emotionally dense. But then again, this was the great Shen Chuhan. Being emotionally stunted was basically her brand. She pondered for a moment before replying. Maybe it's because he realized that you will never ever love him back. Honestly, if you've already chosen him to be your husband, why not at least try to fall for him? He's actually an incredible man beneath all the noise. He just happens to enjoy things that are a bit unconventional. But everyone views him through a biased lens, choosing to believe the nasty rumors instead. Shen Chuhan's gaze suddenly turned a degree colder. Are you in love with him? Song Wanyi instantly spat out her drink in a spectacular spray. Ignoring the mess, she frantically waved her hands. No, absolutely not. Ours is a strictly platonic ride-or-die friendship. After stumbling out of the club, the sweltering midnight breeze hit my face full force. Suddenly, the alcohol surged and I felt incredibly trashed. I wobbled for a few steps before bracing myself against a tree. After a moment of silence, Xiao Weiliang stepped forward to steady me. Are you all right? I'll go grab you some hangover medicine right now. I'm fine. I shook my head groggily, straightening up to lean my back against the rough bark. I looked at her through hazy drunken eyes. It's your first day, isn't it? Xiao Weiliang froze for a second, clearly stunned that I had seen right through her. She lowered her eyes, nodding her head in sheer embarrassment. Yes, you look young, I noted. Still in university. Xiao Weiliang felt as though her secrets were being stripped bare, leaving her with no choice but to nod. This was my first time hiring a girl for drinks, but I've watched others do it plenty of times. Those professionals were way more provocative than Xiao Weiliang. They're usually the type to get handsy the second they're picked. That's exactly why I let Xiao Weiliang sit so close to me. I fished a cigarette out of my pack, but in my drunken state, I couldn't align the flame. Xiao Weiliang eventually took the lighter and sparked it for me. I slowly exhaled a plume of smoke. Quit this job. Go back and focus on your studies. Once you're in too deep, there's no turning back. Xiao Weiliang gripped the lighter tightly, torn between her conscience and her reality. But I desperately need the tuition money. I let out a cynical chuckle. Figures. Money is a total curse. But it sure is useful. I'll give it to you. Xiao Weiliang looked up, her eyes filled with disbelief. Why? Is there something specific you want me to do for you? I can't just take this money for nothing. I pondered for a moment. In that case, let's pretend to be in a relationship. Shen Chuhan caught up just in time to hear those exact words. Xiao Weiliang stood frozen to the spot by my sudden proposal. Before she could even formulate a response, the light above her head was suddenly eclipsed by a towering silhouette. He's drunk. His words don't carry any weight, Shen Chuhan remarked with chilling indifference. Xiao Weiliang instantly felt the surrounding atmosphere plummet below freezing. In reality, Shen Chuhan didn't even need to speak. Xiao Weiliang was already paralyzed with fear. The divide between people can be so vast sometimes. The things you struggle your entire life to obtain, others are born with. Xiao Weiliang recalled my promise to sponsor her education and looked noticeably conflicted. What exactly is your relationship with him? By now, I was so wasted I was practically blacked out. Otherwise, I would have definitely screamed that I had absolutely zero connection to Shen Chuhan. But at this moment, I wasn't even aware that she was the one supporting my weight. I am his fiancé. Shen Chuhan stood against the light staring down Xiao Weiliang. Her dark, frigid eyes made the message crystal clear. Now you may leave. Xiao Weiliang clenched her fist tight. But before she could utter another word, Shen Chuhan shot a glance at Luobin. Luobin immediately stepped forward. Miss Xia, is it? Your university tuition and expenses will be transferred by President Shen as a charitable grant, directly into your bank account. Please follow me to register your information. Xiao Weiliang was utterly stunned. Oh, okay. By the time she looked back, Shen Chuhan had already ushered me away. The black Hongqi sedan quickly vanished into the depths of the night. Inside the car, since Luobin was left behind to handle Xiao Weiliang's matters, Shen Chuhan was forced to take the wheel herself. She was focusing intently on the road ahead, when suddenly my burning hot hand landed squarely on her thigh. Shen Chuhan realized with a start that the person in the passenger seat had slumped his upper body almost entirely against her shoulder. Lucian, sit up. I'm trying to drive. Not only did I refuse to stop, I even started groping around as if I hadn't felt enough, muttering incoherently, this feels pretty good. Boss, I want this model. Wrap it up for me. Shen Chuhan took a sharp, exasperated breath, trying to muster enough focus to peel my hand off her. With her right arm, she shoved me back into an upright position. But a split second later, I flopped right back onto her, left with no other choice. Shen Chuhan had to endure my drunken groping, while flooring the accelerator just a little bit more. The moment they pulled up to the villa, Shen Chuhan finally let out a long sigh of relief, ready to expend her last bit of energy dealing with me. She hoisted me up, scrutinizing my face with a skeptical eye. I certainly looked like I was dead to the world. But the way I was touching her just moments ago didn't feel like the actions of someone fast asleep. Shen Chuhan suspected I was faking it, yet she had absolutely zero proof to back it up. Supporting my weight once more, she dragged me into the villa and marched straight into her own private bedroom, dumping me unceremoniously onto her bed. She hadn't brought me back to the guest house at Sangwani's. Instead, she had taken me to her own personal sanctuary. If I were to snap awake right this second, I would probably be convinced that I'd time traveled once again to that morning 8 years later. The room's layout was a perfect identical match to that future date. Shen Chuhan turned to head to the bathroom for a shower, but the moment she stepped away, her hem was snatched. I cracked my eyes open just a tiny sliver, struggling with all my might to identify the figure before me. Once her face finally came into focus, I began to mumble incoherently under my breath. Shen Chuhan, I'm divorcing you. Shen Chuhan's brow furrowed in confusion. Technically speaking, we aren't even married yet. Out of nowhere, I began to wail at the top of my lungs, you don't love me. Even our son doesn't love me. Nobody in this family gives a damn about me. Since everyone hates my guts, why won't you just let me go and sign the papers? Our son, Shen Chuhan, yielded to my grip and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a rare, overwhelming sense of utter helplessness. Suddenly, I lunged forward and pounced on her. Shen Chuhan, strip for me right now and I'll marry you. Otherwise, I'm quitting society to become a monk. Shen Chuhan looked as if someone had hit her pause button. She remained in a heavy, dead silence for several seconds. Are you actually serious? I gave her a goofy, drunken grin and nodded frantically. The very next second, Shen Chuhan raised her hand, her slender fingers pressed against the top button of her blouse. My eyes instinctively lit up with anticipation. Without so much as a blink, I stared intensely at Shen Chuhan's elegant hands, waiting breathlessly for her next move. Shen Chuhan felt incredibly exposed under my burning gaze. She felt like she was losing her mind. How could she actually take the rambling of a drunkard seriously? Yet she had subconsciously raised her hand to comply. Once she realized the absurdity of her own actions, Shen Chuhan froze trapped in a moment where undoing the button felt just as impossible as leaving it alone. I was starting to lose my patience with the delay. Why haven't you taken it off yet? Oh, I get it. You don't know how to do it properly. Fine, let me handle this. I barked, swatting her hesitant hand aside. With practiced nimble movements, I skillfully popped the first button of her blouse, before lunging forward to sink my teeth into her neck. Shen Chuhan's breath hitched in her throat. She caught my fingers in a firm grip. Lu Xian, are you actually sober right now? I tilted my head back. I'm not drunk at all. Didn't you know I have a legendary tolerance? You've never hit the bars with me, have you? Come on, let's go grab a drink together. In a sudden, erratic shift, I completely forgot about making Shen Chuhan undress. Under Shen Chuhan's bewildered watch, I navigated my way out of the bedroom as if I owned the place. Shen Chuhan let out a helpless, weary sigh, and stood up to follow my chaotic trail. Where on earth are you going? I didn't give her a straight answer. Straight to the basement wine cellar, for a round, obviously. Shen Chuhan's footsteps came to a dead halt, her brow furrowing into a deep, suspicious line. She wasn't a drinker herself. But when she first took over the conglomerate, many associates gifted her priceless vintages. Not wanting to throw them away, she had stored them all in the basement. But this was my very first time in her home. How could I possibly know she had a basement? And how did I know it was stocked with liquor? It was as if I had already spent many years living within these walls. The moment the thought surfaced, Shen Chuhan dismissed it. That was simply impossible. In the few seconds she spent debating this, my figure had already vanished from her sight. Lu Xian. She cautiously descended the stairs leading to the basement. I hadn't bothered to turn on the lights down there, leaving the space engulfed in a thick, suffocating darkness. She couldn't pinpoint my exact location, so she had to descend all the way to the bottom and fumble around blindly for the light switch. The moment her foot hit the final step, she was suddenly slammed roughly against the cold wall. My scorching breath fanned across her collarbone, and my voice sounded like a haunting whisper to Shen Chuhan. Can I become the obsession that haunts your thoughts? Shen Chuhan's crimson lips parted slightly, yet no words came out. But she could tell with absolute clarity that my voice had shifted from moments before. I had sobered up. I'm dead serious. I didn't seem to care whether she offered a reply or not, continuing as if I were talking to myself. I can't afford to make the same catastrophic mistake twice. Repeating the past only leads to total annihilation. If you don't like me, if you don't love me, I absolutely will not marry you. There it was again, that same mysterious error. Those cryptic words that made absolutely no sense to her. Shen Chuhan steadied her ragged breathing. What do you mean by repeating the past? I let out a soft, bitter chuckle. You don't need to know. Having said my piece, I released my iron grip on Shen Chuhan's wrist and took a deliberate step back. I reached into the darkness, grabbing a random bottle of wine, and instinctively found the exact spot where the corkscrew lay. I picked it up and expertly popped the bottle open. Seeing me tilt my head back for another swig, Shen Chuhan blocked me. "You've had more than enough." I shoved her hand away. "Shen Chuhan, why are you even trying to control me? Is it because the rigid precepts you live by tell you that I shouldn't be acting this way? Those are your sacred rules, not mine. Only when I become your sole precept and you use me as your only constraint will you finally have the right to tell me what to do." Nobody had ever dared to make such an audacious demand of Shen Chuhan. "Use you as my constraint." Shen Chuhan pursed her lips in silent contemplation. I chugged more than half the wine in one go, then slammed the bottle onto the table. "Shen Chuhan, I've decided to go abroad to study." As those words fell, the basement descended into a heavy, suffocating silence. Since the lights remained off, Shen Chuhan couldn't see the expression on my face, but she could hear the subtle aching sorrow in my voice. "Why?" I let out a self-deprecating smirk. "You don't believe I'm serious, do you?" To be honest, I didn't think I'd ever say something like this either. But seeing Xia Weiliang today changed something. She was willing to degrade herself in a place like that, just to fund her education and her future. She's powerless against so many obstacles in life, yet the tuition that means everything to her is just the cost of a single meal for people like us. And yet I envy her, because she actually has a dream. She knows exactly what she wants and where she's going. Her life has a purpose, but mine, I've got nothing. I spent the last 20 years living way too comfortably. Truth be told, back when I started out, I wasn't really that much of a delinquent. I just desperately wanted my father to notice me. But Lu Zhenting didn't give a damn about minor mischief. So things escalated to clubbing, street racing, and staying out all night. I finally got my wish, forcing my father to keep his eyes on me at all times. But I also became a total failure in everyone else's eyes. But tell me, how am I actually bad, eh? I've never used my family's power to bully the weak, me. And I've never been a player who sleeps around. Shen Chuhan, you were actually the first person I ever liked. My first real love, effectively. But there's no point in mentioning that now. The one who confesses first always ends up losing everything. I took a deep, shaky breath, stifling the bitter emotion surging within me. I need to go out and find my own purpose in life. Marrying you can't be the only thing I'm meant for. I refuse to be just another pawn in some business alliance. I am Lu Xian. I am not anyone's accessory. Shen Chuhan remained perfectly still, listening intently, without interrupting me once. After a long, drawn-out silence, she finally whispered, "If this is what you truly want, then go ahead and do it. You were never meant to live your life by other people's standards anyway." I froze for a second, totally blindsided by her supportive response. "But what about the engagement between our families?" Bitte six, Lu Xian. "I've heard every word you said, and I've taken them to heart." Shen Chuhan took a step toward me, reaching out to take my hand. But her fingers hesitated mid-air, before she finally pulled them back. "It's true that I viewed this marriage as nothing more than a checkbox on my life's to-do list. But you've made me realize how wrong that was. I don't yet understand what it means to make you my sole constraint, nor do I know if that conflicts with my personal convictions. So, while you're out there searching for your own purpose in life, give me a chance as well. The wedding will be postponed indefinitely. I'll handle all the fallout. You don't have to worry about a single thing." Song Wanyi was right. Why couldn't she try to actually fall for me, even if our beginning was nothing but a chaotic accident? The ultimate ending could still be rewritten. Besides, Shen Chuhan was becoming painfully aware that she felt something fundamentally different for the man standing in front of her. She couldn't quite put a name to this strange sensation, but it was the first time she had ever felt anything like it. My heart felt as though something warm had gently brushed against it, sending ripples through my entire soul. I couldn't deny the truth, even though I had recently witnessed the tragic wreckage of my future marriage with Shen Chuhan with my own eyes. I simply couldn't suppress my genuine feelings for her. There's an old saying, don't meet someone too extraordinary in your youth, or everyone you meet afterward will just be a compromise. Shen Chuhan was without a doubt the most incredible person I'd ever known. I stepped forward and pulled her into a soft embrace. "Shen Chuhan, thank you." When the news broke that I was heading abroad to further my studies, Lu Zhenting and Song Wanyi were the most shell-shocked. They simply couldn't wrap their heads around it. Now we were all gathered in the Lu family's living room. After I dropped the bombshell of my announcement, I calmly hoisted my teacup and took a deliberate sip. Shen Chuhan had just poured it for me a moment ago. But the second it hit my tongue, my face twisted in a grimace. Who in their right mind actually enjoys something this bitter? I hurriedly slammed the cup back onto the table and shoved it as far away as possible. Meanwhile, sitting right across from me, Lu Zhenting was clearly struggling to process the bombshell I'd just dropped. His facial expression was frozen in a look of sheer stupidity. He finally spoke up, his voice trembling with hesitation. Have you been possessed by some kind of unholy spirit?" I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. "Give me a break, old man. Back when I was a useless delinquent with zero ambition, You were practically begging to trade me for a new son. Now that I've decided to actually hit the books, you're suddenly having second thoughts. It's not that I'm unhappy about it. It's just that it sounds physically impossible. Lu Genting's brows knitted into a tight knot of suspicion. He pivoted his gaze towards Shen Chuhan. Tell me, at that temple of yours, is there some kind of mystical artifact that purifies souls? I nearly laughed in frustration. Just tell me, are you funding it or not? Are you letting me go? Because I'm telling you right now, this is a limited time offer. Once it's gone, it's gone. If you turn me down this time, I won't go even if you try to drag me there by force. Go, just go. Lu Genting's attitude flipped instantly. He whipped out his phone and started firing off texts to his assistant to transfer the funds immediately, terrified that I might change my mind at any second. Halfway through the message, he looked up with a sharp glare. Wait, you're not planning to go abroad just to cause more trouble, right? I let out a smirk. Well, I wouldn't rule it out. Maybe I shouldn't go then. Don't you dare. Lu Genting rapidly added another zero to the amount in the text. In his entire life, he never imagined that I'd ever willingly choose a path of higher education. Even if he had no clue why I'd suddenly turned a new leaf, he knew he had to seize this golden opportunity. After hitting send, Lu Genting stood up and grasped Shen Chuhan's hand. Thank you. Chuhan as his elder. I honestly don't even know how to properly thank you for this miracle. I frowned, completely baffled. Why are you thanking her? Lu Genting shot me a look of pure disdain. It's obvious these past few days spending time with Chuhan must have finally beat some sense into that thick skull of yours. If it weren't for Chuhan being such a stellar influence, there's no way you'd suddenly turn your life around. I swear this whole situation is beyond absurd. I looked away and let out another massive eye roll. Shen Chuhan was forced to endure Lu Genting's endless gratitude, repeatedly trying to find a gap to explain that my decision actually had absolutely nothing to do with her. But she couldn't find a single opening to speak up. While those two were completely distracted with each other, Song Wanyi stealthily scooted a bit closer to me and gave me a subtle beckoning wave. Leaning in, she whispered directly into my ear. How on earth did you get Shen Chuhan to flip her script? Did you seriously sleep with her again? I shot her a look of pure utter disbelief. Song Wanyi curled her lip. Look, we're friends. There's no need to gatekeep the juicy details from me. That mark on Shen Chuhan's neck? Was that your handiwork? It's freaking glaringly obvious. I swear, if she steps foot into the corporate office today, the headlines tomorrow will be absolutely wild. They'll say she's been corrupted, and that you're the male seducer who led her astray. Regarding that specific point, I honestly had no defense. It was in fact the bite mark I had left behind. Feeling a surge of guilt, I averted my gaze. It's got nothing to do with me. Song Wanyi instantly called my bluff. Are you lying? It was totally you. Sometimes being too close to someone is a real curse. It makes you want to permanently silence them. I lowered my voice menacingly. If you dare blab about this, I'll rip your tongue out. Wanyi covered her mouth but kept talking. For real though, the girl literally grew up in front of the Buddha. Don't you feel even a shred of guilt for tainting her like that? And now you're leaving your fiancé all alone in the country, just to go study and live your best life abroad. I emphasized, it's for my education, not for fun. Sure, education. Song Wanyi shrugged her shoulders, clearly not buying it. She was about to say more, but then Shen Chuhan's sharp gaze suddenly shifted toward us. She immediately bolted back to her original spot. That woman is terrifying. Over on the other side, Lu Genting finally wrapped up his long-winded speech of thanks. He wiped a non-existent tear from the corner of his eye and turned his attention back toward me. So when exactly are you leaving? I wasn't sure why, but I instinctively darted a glance toward Shen Chuhan. The day after tomorrow, everything is already coordinated with the school. Lu Genting's brow furrowed deep, looking like he couldn't wait to shove me onto a plane this very second. Then what do you have planned for tomorrow? I cleared my throat awkwardly, my eyes darting around. None of your business. I've got my own things to handle. Song Wanyi, however, had already seen right through me. It's definitely something scandalous that can't see the light of day. What I was actually planning to do sounded utterly absurd when put into words. Not only had I never imagined it myself, but even the elite circle of high-profile young masters dying to have any connection with Shen Chuhan would never have guessed it. I was going on a date with Shen Chuhan, and the craziest part, this date, was personally suggested by Shen Chuhan herself. On that night, after I whispered my thanks to her, we shared a quiet lingering embrace for a few seconds, before Shen Chuhan suddenly asked in a soft voice, Lucian, would you like to go on a date with me? I didn't even fully grasp the underlying meaning behind that hug. Maybe it was just the residual alcohol clouding my judgment, but Shen Chuhan wasn't drunk at all. She was more lucid and clear-headed than anyone. I had zero reason to decline, and truth be told, I didn't want to. But the most glaring thorny issue was, neither I nor Shen Chuhan had any romantic experience. Zero experience in the dating department. That night, I spent an entire hour on the phone with Song Wanyi, who had an extensive dating history but lacked a permanent boyfriend. It was a grueling 60-minute call. Unfortunately, Song Wanyi didn't offer any solid, useful advice, because her interactions with men almost exclusively began at some high-end bar, followed by a hotel visit that same night, and a clean breakup by the following morning. Song Wanyi, you are a total player. I hissed at her through gritted teeth. Song Wanyi remained completely unfazed. At least we have some friendly dialogue before hitting the hotel. Unlike certain people who just pounce immediately, I was left speechless. I completely ignoring whether the other person is even willing. I immediately cut the call. Trusting Song Wanyi is like expecting a pig to fly. Instead, I fired up a travel app to scout out where people actually go for fun. One particular headline snatched my attention. Must visit spots for couples. My heart skipped a violent beat, and an uncontrollable heat began creeping up my face. What exactly is the deal between me and Shen Chuhan now? The engagement hasn't actually been called off, so technically we're still fiancé and fiancée. But we have zero emotional foundation, so calling us lovers feels like a stretch. Yet we're about to go on a date. I tried to convince myself, I'll just take one quick peek. I'm just curious, that's all. 30 seconds later, I exited the page with a face flushed crimson, tossed my phone aside, and buried my entire head into the pillow. Seriously, why do couples feel the need to post photos of themselves making out at tourist attractions? The comment section was even worse. Are Shen Chuhan and I expected to do that too? Sleep was now a total impossibility. I tossed and turned all night long, my heart itching as if 1,000 ants were biting at it. When the alarm finally shrieked the next morning, I looked like a complete wreck with bird's nest hair and dark circles under my eyes as I slumped upright. Damn it. Couldn't Shen Chuhan have just said, let's hang out? Why did she have to explicitly use the word date, despite my internal whining? I scrambled out of bed to wash up and sprinted straight into the walk-in closet. And that's when I realized I didn't own a single piece of clothing that was actually appropriate for a proper date. The racks were stuffed with my battle gear for the clubbing scene. I slumped onto the floor in the middle of a heap of clothes defeated. I'm totally screwed. There's no way in hell I can wear these cringy, edgy leather pants to go out with someone like Shen Chuhan. Just as I was drowning in misery, Lu Genting's voice boomed from downstairs. Xian Chuhan is here. Hurry it up already. I nearly jumped out of my skin. How the hell did Shen Chuhan get here so early? I scrambled through the mountain of discarded clothes, desperately hunting for anything that looked even remotely normal. But there was nothing. Not a single damn thing. I tugged at my hair in frustration, before a sudden realization hit me. Why was I so obsessed with finding appropriate attire? I should just wear exactly what I like. The mental fog finally cleared. I instantly snatched up my favorite biker set, slipped it on, and gave my short hair a quick style. Then I strode out of the room. As I descended the stairs, I spotted Shen Chuhan standing right there in the living room. She had ditched her usual somber, rigid professional suit, opting instead for a crisp, simple white t-shirt paired with a classic set of denim jeans. She'd even swapped her heels for casual sneakers, looking exactly like a vibrant, youthful college student. A college student, huh? My eyes narrowed slightly as a smirk played on my lips. I absolutely adored the vibe of that word. From Shen Chuhan's perspective, the first thing to enter her field of vision was a pair of long, perfectly straight legs in black trousers. Moving up, she saw a handsome, carefree face, belonging to a woman with a teasing, mischievous smile. With just one glance, Shen Chuhan was completely mesmerized. It wasn't like she hadn't seen me styled this way before, but for some reason today felt fundamentally different. To her, in this moment, I radiated an indescribable lethal magnetism. Shen Chuhan bit her lips softly, using every ounce of her self-control to avert her eyes. But in a few quick strides, I was right back in her face. I'm all set. Let's head out, shall we? Shen Chuhan practiced extreme restraint, trying not to let her intense gaze linger too long or make things awkward. She turned toward the door to lead the way out. I frowned. Why the hell wasn't she looking at me? Does she think I look like a mess? I tilted my head toward the sofa, glancing at Lu Genting, who was pretending to be oblivious. In reality, his eyes were peeking out from behind the newspaper, shamelessly spying on us. It seems Shen Chuhan still isn't used to my charm. Even my old man has adapted by now. I nonchalantly pulled my gaze away and followed her out. But the moment I stepped outside, I spotted that honky sedan with the 88888 plate parked there. I stopped dead in my tracks, words caught in my throat. You're seriously driving this car? Are you trying to broadcast to the whole world that we're on a date? Shen Chuhan's hand froze on the car door handle. It was clear that possibility hadn't even crossed her mind. I'll have Luobin deliver another vehicle immediately. She reached for her phone, but I stopped her. Forget it. Let's just take mine. Hardly anyone has ever seen me driving it. We headed over to the massive garage. I pointed toward a light blue BMW wrapped in a Doraemon cartoon theme among the dozens of luxury cars. This one. Shen Chuhan's expression shifted visibly into pure hesitation. It's adorable, right? I tossed the keys over to her and started walking toward the passenger side. I bought it specifically because of its cute aesthetic. I even gave it a name, Cupid. The last word hung in the air oddly elongated. I paused for a beat, suddenly feeling like something was horribly off. Damn it, why did I have to pick this specific car today? Is Shen Chuhan going to think that I chose this Cupid car on purpose for our date? Just as I cautiously peeked at her to gauge her reaction, Shen Chuhan showed absolutely zero emotion. She simply stepped forward and pulled the door open. Oh right, she's a devout Buddhist. Western deities basically don't exist in her universe. I guess next time I'll have to name it Yuelao or Matchmaker, if I want to get even a flicker of a reaction out of her. I exhaled in relief and hopped in. So where are we heading? Naturally, I was looking incredibly sharp today. No matter where we ended up, I was confident I'd be the most stunning person in the room. However, her next few words completely shattered every single one of my romantic fantasies. She said in a crisp, frigid tone, Phuc Temple. Oh God. In that exact moment, I genuinely wished I were a devout Christian, just so I'd have a reason to hurl myself out of the moving car. I pointed at my edgy outfit in utter disbelief, and turned to stare at Shen Chuhan. Are you for real? You seriously want me to go to a temple dressed like this? Who in their right mind goes on a date at a temple? Shen Chuhan had already ignited the engine. She cranked the steering wheel, but upon hearing my indignant interrogation, she slammed on the brakes. A flicker of, dare I say, awkwardness crossed her face. No, today is actually my scheduled day for meditation. I just need to go and request a leave of absence. I pulled my hand back and let out a forced dry laugh. So even Zen meditation requires a formal leave request. It's practically like punching a time card at a job. The engine roared back to life, and soon we were parked at the foot of Mount Lumen. Shen Chuhan originally suggested I wait in the car, but I figured dying of boredom wasn't on my itinerary. So I decided to tag along for the hike up. According to the official timeline of this life, this should have been my very first visit to the temple. Yet I couldn't possibly be more familiar with this place. Shen Chuhan instructed me to wait in her private quarters before heading out. Everything inside was identical to the room I saw 8 years later. It seems that's just the kind of person Shen Chuhan is. Someone who utterly loathes change. I suppose that's just another form of unwavering devotion. I scanned the room when a sudden memory sparked in my mind. He strode purposefully toward the long desk, lifted the heavy inkstone, and sure enough, a slip of paper was tucked underneath. It was dated July 12th. My hand gave a violent tremor. I couldn't help but recall the devastating words I discovered during my last time slip: to marry and bear a child is not the true desire of my heart. Though I stray from the path of my convictions, it is only to appease my parents. I vow to remain a vegetarian and spend this life atoning for my transgressions. I assumed this time would be no different. Yet a morbid curiosity drove me to see for myself. Just as my fingers twitched toward the paper, the sound of the door creaking open echoed behind me. Shen Chuhan stepped inside, spotting me standing by the desk with my hands tucked behind my back. A faint hidden smile touched her eyes. We can head down now. But I completely missed it. Suppressing my racing heartbeat, I forced a casual grin and walked over as if nothing had happened. Ah, right, let's go. We left the temple side by side, returning to my light blue BMW, the one I'd christened Cupid. Shen Chuhan, however, sat behind the wheel in a daze, making no move to start the car. She turned her head toward me. Where exactly should we go? I finally snapped back to reality, my eyes locking onto hers. Wait, don't tell me you haven't prepared an itinerary either. That either seemed to reveal a bit too much of my own lack of planning. A heavy silence hung between us for a fleeting moment. It was painfully obvious that Shen Chuhan couldn't think of a single decent destination. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration hit me. I know the perfect spot. Let's go, I'll navigate half an hour later. The Cupid BMW pulled up at the Sally racing circuit. A flicker of pure confusion crossed Shen Chuhan's elegant features. I, on the other hand, was practically beaming with excitement. I swear this place is a total blast. You just haven't experienced the thrill yet. I promise. I stepped in front of her to block her exit path, emphasizing my point. Shen Chuhan attempted to dismantle my enthusiasm with her cold logic. A motorcycle is essentially a flesh-wrapped iron mode of transport. Operating one at such high speeds is nothing short of a perilous extreme sport. Lu Xiyan, you were the one who said you'd give me a chance. I cut her off mid-sentence, my eyes brimming with a touch of manufactured disappointment. I looked like a kicked puppy, practically drooping my ears in sorrow. Shen Chuhan finally surrendered. Fine, fine. I instantly dropped the act, my gloomy expression vanishing in a heartbeat. I practically bounced toward the entrance, shouting at the top of my lungs, Sally, where's my baby? The owner of the circuit, Sally, whose real name was Shu Manyao, was unexpectedly young, appearing to be roughly around my age. She was dressed like a mechanic, with various tools stuffed haphazardly into her cargo pockets. She walked over with a smirk. Xian, you're here. Where's Wan Yi? Why didn't she tag along today? And this person behind you is... I paused for a few seconds, wondering how to even introduce Shen Chuhan. I glanced at Shen Chuhan, hoping she would take the lead and answer the question herself. Shen Chuhan stepped forward with poise and extended her hand. I am Xian's fiancé. Sally raised an inquisitive eyebrow. Fiancé? Didn't Xian just go off to get married a while back? I quickly dove between the two of them, flashing a grin before Shen Chuhan could say anything further. There was a slight change of plans. So where's my little rabbit? Oh, she's in peak condition. Sally wheeled a high-performance motorcycle out of the warehouse. The bike's aggressive, fierce appearance had absolutely nothing in common with the name Little Rabbit. The entire frame was coated in a deep crimson finish, with sleek black racing stripes slicing across the body. I felt like I was reuniting with a long-lost lover, stepping forward to stroke every inch of its frame. That specific comparison flashed through Shen Chuhan's mind, but she quickly shook her head to banish the thought. I stood tall and beckoned her over with a wave. Let's go. Time to get you changed into something proper. Shen Chuhan stiffened as the tips of her ears instantly flushed a deep, vivid shade of red. She rushed to my side in a frantic blur, hissing in a low voice, even if we are officially engaged. You absolutely cannot change clothes with me in public. Now it was my turn to stand there completely stunned. The second I realized what Shen Chuhan was implying, I couldn't stop myself from bursting into laughter. Shen Chuhan stared at me, her mind a total fog of confusion. As more and more onlookers began to turn their heads, she grabbed my wrist while I clutched my stomach, dragging me toward a secluded, empty corner. Did I say something wrong? I waved her off, struggling to stand upright through my giggles. Seriously, Shen Chuhan, I'm only just realizing now how incredibly adorable you were in your youth. One little tease and your ears turned bright red. Shen Chuhan bit her crimson lip. Lucian? All right. I took a sharp breath, stifling my laughter and fanning my face with my hand. What I actually meant just now was, I'm taking you to get your safety gear on. I wasn't suggesting that the two of us should strip down in the same room together. Are you a little slow or what? I'm already wearing my riding suit. Shen Chuhan, completely clueless about biker culture, finally realized she had made an epic, embarrassing blunder. She averted her gaze, lapsing into a stubborn silence, but I could see her ears glowing even redder than before. For the first time, I felt like Shen Chuhan was a real living, breathing person. There were things she didn't know, moments where she could actually feel flustered, and times when her composure would totally melt away. She wasn't just that cold, untouchable figure from my memories, that noble, untouchable lotus goddess who could only be admired from afar. This fresh, raw perspective made me start to lose track of the rigid, cold impression Shen Chuhan had left on me during my previous time slip. Watching Shen Chuhan still acting all flustered and awkward, I naturally reached out and took her hand. All right, relax. I didn't do it on purpose. How was I supposed to know you'd take it that way? If you ask me, those traditional values of yours could use a bit of a reality check every now and then. The second the words left my mouth, I realized my tone sounded exactly like I was coaxing a stubborn child. Surprisingly, Shen Chuhan actually seemed to vibe with it. The awkward tension on her face finally began to thaw. Once we both suited up in our heavy protective gear, we headed back to Little Rabbit. With a fluid practice motion, I swung my leg over the bike and snapped my helmet shut, only to see Shen Chuhan standing there like a statue. What are you waiting for? Hop on, Shen Chuhan looked stunned. We're sharing the same bike. I quirked an eyebrow. Can you even ride? Shen Chuhan shook her head slowly. Well, there you go then. Get on and hold tight. I gestured behind me, my eyes sparkling with mischief. Behind the dark visor of my helmet. Let Big Brother show you what real speed feels like. Shen Chuhan mimicked my movement and straddled the seat, but then just let her hands hang uselessly at her sides. I couldn't stand the sight of it. Bracing the bike's weight with one leg, I let go of the handlebars, reached back and grabbed, both of her hands firmly placing them on my waist. Hold right here. If you're really terrified, just hug me. Otherwise, the second I throttle up, you're going to fly off backward. Shen Chuhan didn't hear a single word I said. The very instant her palms pressed against the small of my back, a single vivid memory bloomed in her mind. That night 1 year ago, when the silvery moonlight flooded through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the curve of my waist. Shen Chuhan tried to regain her composure. She was never the type to get shaken so easily, but some memories are just impossible to suppress. While she was lost in thought, a group of bikers suddenly pulled up alongside us. One of them let out a sharp whistle at my ride. Sick bike. Up for a race? A cocky smirk tugged at the corners of my mouth. Why the hell not? The guy who spoke darted another curious glance at Shen Chuhan behind me. You seriously taking your girlfriend along for the ride? She looks a little stiff. She's gonna slow you down, man. I flashed him a blatant middle finger. Watch your mouth. This right here is my goddess of luck. In the biker world, some riders would carry a girl on the back of their seat and refer to her as their lucky goddess. Clearly, Shen Chuhan had no idea about this tradition, but she didn't say a word. She merely leveled a cold, indifferent stare at the guy. The race girl stood by the track hoisting the green flag high. Every engine erupted into a deafening, bone-shaking roar. I stared ahead at the open road, adrenaline surging, and asked Shen Chuhan, "Hey, you afraid to die?" Shen Chuhan thought she must have misheard me. If there's anything in this life that terrifies you, it won't scare you anymore after today. As my voice trailed off, the whistle shrieked. Every bike lunged forward simultaneously, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. The violent G-force of the acceleration forced Shen Chuhan to instinctively wrap her arms tight around my waist. Damn. I actually found the focus to keep talking to her. Shen Chuhan, keep your eyes open. My eyes are open. Don't worry about me. Just watch the road. She was trying her absolute best to sound composed, which only made my mood skyrocket. I twisted the throttle, then hold on tight. I won that race without even breaking a sweat. But I didn't give Shen Chuhan a second to recover. I took her for several more high-speed laps. By the time we finally dismounted, Shen Chuhan's legs were like absolute jelly. But, relying on her insane willpower and years of poise, she refused to let herself show even a hint of weakness. She fought back the violent nausea churning in her stomach. I handed her a bottle of water. You okay? You're officially the first person I've seen who can still stand upright after their first ride. In reality, she was seconds away from collapsing. Shen Chuhan accepted the water and took a long swig. A stray droplet trailed down her jaw, glistening on her collarbone. I stared, completely mesmerized by the sight. Now I finally understand what eye candy really means. Suddenly, I felt like I didn't want to go abroad anymore. What was that? Shen Chuhan set the bottle down and looked at me. That's when I realized I'd accidentally let my inner thoughts slip out loud. I shook my head, avoiding her gaze like a guilty kid. Nothing. Just then, Sally approached us, leading a young child. We both turned to look as the child abruptly froze in their tracks, standing rooted to the spot, refusing to budge. Sally gave the kid a playful nudge in the back. Weren't you the one begging to meet this big brother? Why are you acting all shy now? The child simply hung their head in silence. Sally stepped forward to explain. This is my younger sibling. They were totally starstruck watching you race just now. Said they've never seen such slick drifting skills before, and really wanted to meet you. I didn't expect them to chicken out and go mute. I let out a chuckle, stepping forward to offer my hand. Hey there, I'm Lucian. What's your name? The child's face flushed crimson in an instant. They fidgeted, twisting their fingers together, too bashful to utter a single word. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but this kid looked eerily familiar to me. Hey little one, when you're talking to someone, you should look them right in the eye. My voice held a gentle warmth Shen Chuhan had never heard before. Come on, look up so I can see your face. After a moment of hesitation, the child slowly looked up. Hello, big brother. I froze, completely stunned. It wasn't just my imagination. I really did know this person. A wild, absurd thought raced through my mind. I blinked several times in disbelief, then looked up at Sally. What's your sibling's name? Sally leaned against a car, crossing her arms nonchalantly. Shu Xingluo, Shu Manyao. Shu Xingluo, holy crap, I cursed internally. I stared at the kid in front of me, totally bewildered. How old are you? Su Xingluo bit their lip. 14. 14? In 8 years, that would be 22. During my previous transmigration, that vibrant and sunny college student I encountered began to overlap perfectly with the innocent girl before my eyes. A crushing wave of profound guilt instantly washed over me. Just what the hell was I doing back then? The 30-year-old version of myself, pursuing the 22-year-old Shu Xingluo, didn't feel all that scandalous at the time. But suddenly being a 22-year-old man, confronting a mere 14-year-old Shu Xingluo, record the experiment. You're absolutely going to rot in hell after you die. The smile on my face stiffened into a frozen mask. I forced a twitch of a smile, quickly straightened my posture, and barked, Hey Sally, I've got some urgent business to handle, so I'm heading out. Make sure you take care of the car maintenance for me. With those words blurted out, I hurriedly grabbed Shen Chuhan, desperate to make an exit. But the moment I took a single step, Zhu Xinnu, standing right behind me, suddenly summoned an unexpected burst of courage. She called out, Big brother. Wait a second. I turned around with mechanical stiffness. What is it, Shu Xinnuo? Her gaze shifted towards Shen Chuhan, whose hand I was gripping. Are you Big brother's girlfriend? Shen Chuhan considered it a fiancé isn't exactly a girlfriend. So she slowly shook her head. At that, Shu Xinnuo immediately looked at me and asked, Then brother, can I be your girlfriend instead? The moment those words left her lips, Sally broke into a fit of dry coughing. Kid, that's some shocking language coming from you. Shen Chuhan's eyes turned icy cold, staring indifferently at this little brat who hadn't even grown up yet, already daring to set her sights on her fiancé. Meanwhile, I could only marvel inwardly. Some things in this world are just inexplicably bizarre. I silently breathed a sigh of relief in my heart, thankful that I'm the only one who transmigrated. After a moment of thought, I leaned down slightly to get level with Shu Xinnuo. Listen, I don't do minors. I finished my sentence, and before she could even process it, I yanked Shen Chuhan away and bolted, as if escaping from a crime scene, not stopping until we reached the BMW. Shen Chuhan asked, bewildered, What on earth did you say to her? Nothing, I replied, waving her off while gasping for air. If Shen Chuhan ever found out about the scandalous things I said to that kid, she'd probably drag me back to that temple 1,000 times, just to perform an emergency exorcism on my soul. I shot a nervous glance back towards Sally, terrified she might come charging after us, to demand what I'd done to her little sister. I hurriedly pulled Shen Chuhan into the car, desperate to flee. Anywhere but here, let's just go. The best thing about Shen Chuhan is her lack of prying questions. She wordlessly ignited the engine and steered us far away from the racing circuit. In reality, Shen Chuhan was just terrified that if we stayed, I'd suddenly get a second wind and force her through another dozen bone-shaking laps. Even for a woman of her discipline, some experiences need to be processed at a much slower pace. How ironic it turns out. There are actually things in this world that can make the unshakable Shen Chuhan feel fear. but I was too distracted to notice her discomfort. My mind was a chaotic mess of images from 8 years in the future, picturing myself shamelessly flirting with Xu Xingluo. Was this where the wheels of destiny first began to turn, or had my time slip already warped reality? I tried to delve deep into the memories of the next 10 years that had been etched into my brain during my last trip. Suddenly, I realized with a jolt that many of those mental images were becoming hazy, fading into an illegible blur. The first scenes to be smothered by the fog were the ones where Shen Chuhan and I were supposed to have our grand wedding. Because I had fundamentally changed my decision, it seems events were no longer following the sequence of that original timeline. Is that why those memories are dissolving? If the path has diverged, does that mean the endings to other stories could change as well? For instance, I glanced silently at Shen Chuhan as she drove. Could the ultimate conclusion for us be different this time? Shen Chuhan sensed my lingering gaze. While waiting for a red light, she shifted her focus toward me. You still haven't told me where we're going. Is there anywhere special you want to see? I heard the sunset at Mount Lumen is breathtaking. Is that true? I asked, watching as Shen Chuhan paused to reflect. I honestly wouldn't know what qualifies as beautiful. Still, a crowd ascends that mountain every single day. So many people are absolutely captivated by it. I assume you'd probably enjoy it too, right? I let out a soft, playful chuckle. But I'm not like the average person. What if I actually hate it? The question seemed to genuinely stump Shen Chuhan. After a moment, she pulled her gaze back to the road. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone, she whispered. To me, you are one of a kind. I never expected her to say something so profound. It felt like a monk striking a mountain bell at twilight. I felt my own heart shudder as if it had been struck by that same resonant vibration. I bit my lip, trying to steady my racing pulse, and stared out the window. Suddenly, I spoke up. Shen Chuhan, I'm flying out tomorrow. Shen Chuhan's grip on the steering wheel tightened visibly. I know. It's possible we won't see each other for years. I feigned a nonchalant, breezy tone, even though we agreed to give us a real chance. If you ever meet someone you like more, would you fall for someone else? Shen Chuhan abruptly cut me off. I was stunned as she pulled the car to the curb. She didn't look at me, but instead repeated the question. Would you fall for someone else? By the time my flight finally took off, Shen Chuhan was standing in her private quarters at Phuc Temple. She stood at the threshold gazing at the pale, hazy sky, and slowly shredded a slip of paper between her fingers. She knew we would cross paths again. 3 years later, London. I clutched my books tightly against my chest, sprinting from the library back toward the dorms. Once I burst into the room, my roommate David peeked out from behind his laptop screen. Forgot your umbrella again, didn't you? Xian man. I peeled off my soaked shirt and tossed it straight into the washing machine. I shook the excess rainwater from my hair. Even after 2 years in London, I still can't stand this damp, miserable climate. And its completely erratic downpours. My first 20 years were never this freaking soggy. David rolled over on his bed with a smirk. So did you finally agree to that date with Sophia? Sophia, I muttered, hitting the start button on the washer. Which Sophia are we talking about? Good God, the law department's heartthrob, obviously. David bolted upright in an instant. Don't you dare tell me you have no clue. She's got a literal army of guys chasing her, but she hasn't given a single one the time of day. I gave an indifferent, nonchalant shrug. My guess it's because she isn't into guys. Want to bet 50 pounds on it? David refused to drop the subject. Then how do you explain the fact that she personally invited you to the graduation ball? Did she really? I paused for a couple of seconds, desperately trying to scavenge a face from my memory that matched the name Sophia, but I came up completely empty-handed. I stripped off my damp clothes and stepped into the bathroom. I honestly don't recall that happening. Besides, David, I've told you 1,000 times. I already have a fiancé. David let out a heavy sigh. I'm convinced you're capping. Otherwise, how come I've never seen even a glimpse of this person anywhere in your actual life? My hand froze for a split second as I reached for the faucet. He wasn't wrong. In the 3 long years I've been in London, Shen Chuhan hasn't visited me even once. Our only contact is a text conversation every 3 days. Sure, I know there's a massive time difference, and that Shen Chuhan is drowning in work. But having David point it out left me feeling pretty hollow. I worked the shampoo into a thick lather. I've explained this to Deathman. She's just a massive workaholic. David's voice continued to drone on from outside. Is she way older than you or something? Listen, Xian being a homewrecker is looked down upon even here in London. I stopped responding and simply rolled my eyes in the steam. I genuinely believe David should quit school and become a novelist. His imagination is honestly on another level. Though, come to think of it, imagining the elegant Shen Chuhan as some married 30-something-year-old middle-aged woman is actually pretty hilarious. I decided that once I finish my shower, I'll definitely have to share this little joke with Shen Chuhan. Over these past 3 long years, even though Shen Chuhan and I have stayed in touch, the way she speaks and her overall tone has remained consistently indifferent and detached. Our relationship hasn't progressed an inch. Honestly, there are times I start to suspect that Shen Chuhan is just waiting to call off our engagement. Even though breaking things off was exactly what I wanted back then. Now, well, what now? It's actually pretty hard for me to admit, but deep down I'm reluctant to let her go. 3 years have vanished, and as my understanding of Shen Chuhan has deepened, that initial spark of love, didn't just flicker and die out like I expected. Instead, it's only grown more intense. I just have no clue what's going on in that head of hers. Stepping out after my shower, I reached for my phone. The final message sitting in our chat was still just my rant about academic research from 3 days ago. Checking the time, I realized Shen Chuhan hasn't replied to me in over 72 hours. Did something happen to her? I was debating whether or not to give her a ring, when suddenly, Song Wanyi's name flashed on the screen. Young Master Lu. Guess where I am right now? I couldn't care less about her games. I don't care where you are just before I could finish. A sudden knock echoed from the dormitory door. I froze. No way. I walked over and swung the door open, but it wasn't Song Wanyi standing there. Instead, it was a British woman with brunette hair and tea-colored eyes. Good evening, Lu. I furrowed my brow in confusion. Hello. And you are? David was beside me, frantically winking and mouthing a name to me. Sophia. Oh, right, Sophia. I forced a polite, practiced smile. Is there something I can help you with? Sophia looked incredibly bashful and reserved. Well, you see, I wanted to ask if you were free tonight. I'd love to invite you to a movie. I covered the mic, wearing an expression of feigned difficulty. I'm flattered, but unfortunately, his assignments are actually all finished. So he's got plenty of time to catch a movie with you. David rudely cut me off, giving me a forceful shove that sent me stumbling out of the room. Before I could even react, David flashed me a knowing wink and waved a quick goodbye. I trust you two will have an unforgettable night. With that, he slammed the door shut in my face. Damn it, I stared helplessly at the closed door, before glancing back at Sophia, whose eyes were shimmering with pure anticipation. I let out a resigned sigh and told Sophia just a second, then turned away to address Song Wanyi on the phone. What were you saying before? Song Wanyi broke into a mocking, sarcastic laugh, perfectly mimicking Sophia's soft tone. I'd love to invite you to a movie, immersive. Young Master Lu, isn't your engagement still active? Isn't this technically a betrayal of your vows? Cut the crap. It's not what you think, I growled. Do you have actual news or not? Oh, I definitely do. Song Wanyi's voice sounded so smug I could practically picture her kicking her legs up. From what I've gathered, Shen Chuhan is currently in London for business. She caught a flight last night, so she should be touching down right about now. My breath hitched in my throat, unaware that my heart had begun to race like crazy. Are you serious? Song Wanyi snickered. I can hear the excitement in your voice. You're thrilled, and practically jumping for joy. I am not. I denied it without a second thought. You're hearing things? Song Wanyi countered, don't celebrate just yet. Shen Chuhan didn't exactly fly solo on this trip. Word is, she brought a very handsome male assistant along. I froze as a specific face flashed through my mind. I blurted out, Pei Jingji, is his father dead already? Wait, you know him? Song Wanyi was baffled. What does his dad have to do with anything? The man is in perfectly good health. According to the timeline from my last time slip, Pei Jingji's father shouldn't be having any issues yet. But if his father was actually fine, why would Pei Jingji be working as Shen Chuhan's assistant? And why on earth would he agree to it? Song Wanyi continued, you'd better stay on your toes. I've heard this Pei Jingji is head over heels for Shen Chuhan. He's probably trying to snatch your spot while you're stuck abroad. I scoffed. With those pathetic amateur tricks of his, please. Spoken like someone with true confidence. Song Wanyi chuckled. Alright, whatever. I've actually got a date to get to, so I'm hanging up now. A date? I've never heard of anything so absurd. Who the hell are you going out with? Another one of your one-night flings. This time Song Wanyi sounded genuinely flustered. It's not like that. I'm hanging up, she snapped, and the line went dead. I curled my lip in annoyance. I shoved my phone away and moved to head back into the dorm, only to find Sophia still standing there, waiting expectantly. That's when it hit me I'd totally forgotten she was there. Sophia was clutching 2 movie tickets in her hand, looking like a bundle of raw nerves. Lu. The sudden news of Pei Jingji's arrival was giving me a massive headache. My mood for a movie had completely evaporated. I opened my mouth, ready to turn her down. But before Sophia could finish her sentence, a voice echoed from the far end of the hallway, speaking in incredibly formal, perfect English. Excuse me, could you tell me which room belongs to Lu Xian? It was Shen Chuhan. I instinctively turned toward the source, and saw Shen Chuhan in her professional suit and heels, radiating an aura of sheer elegance and poise. Even the British guy she was asking for directions was clearly entranced, staring at her in a daze. My heart began to hammer against my ribs in that instant. However, a second later, another figure stepped up to Shen Chuhan's side. It was Pei Jingji. I made a split-second executive decision. I turned my focus back to Sophia and flashed a charming smile. Actually, I'm free. What time does the movie start? If we leave right now, can we still make it? Sophia froze for a few seconds, looking stunned. Based on my attitude just a moment ago, She had fully braced herself for a rejection. She suddenly became a flustered mess, her radiant, genuine smile impossible to hide. Of course. If we head out now, we'll make it just in time for the opening. I nodded. Well then, what are we waiting for? Let's move. Having said that, I firmly gripped Sophia's arm and marched straight down the hallway. However, my gaze remained locked onto Shen Chuhan at the far end of the corridor. On her end, Shen Chuhan received her answer, giving a slight nod of gratitude, and proceeded toward my dormitory room. As she turned, our eyes met from just a dozen paces away, and all four of us instinctively froze in our tracks. Though Sophia didn't know who Shen Chuhan was, she could clearly tell by the expression on my face that we were definitely acquainted. A heavy silence hung in the air as no one spoke first. Finally, Shen Chuhan broke the tension. Lu Xian, where exactly are you headed? I cocked an eyebrow provocatively. What brings you here? Come all this way just to find me? Well, this is awkward timing. I was just heading out for a movie with a friend. And who might this gentleman be? Shen Chuhan's eyes turned cold. Pei Jingji let a subtle smirk play on his lips, stepping forward and extending his hand. Greetings, Mr. Lu. I'm President Shen's assistant, Pei Jingji. I stared at his outstretched hand, noting internally that he truly was a refined heir. He remained perfectly composed, even when facing a romantic rival. I immediately linked arms with Sophia, giving Pei Jingji a shallow, mocking smile. Oh, hello. I completely ignored his hand, leaving it hanging in the air. Pei Jingji chuckled, seemingly unfazed by the embarrassment. He retracted his hand. It seems we've arrived at an inopportune time. Disturbing your little date. Don't worry about it, I shot back with a grin. If there's nothing else, we'll be taking our leave. I pulled Sophia along, continuing toward the exit. Just as I brushed past Shen Chuhan, she suddenly reached out and seized my wrist. My heart skipped a violent beat, yet I maintained my mask of cool indifference. I looked back at her. Is there a problem? I fully expected her to interrogate me about my relationship with Sophia or demand to know where I was going. But surprisingly, Shen Chuhan simply asked, I have a pivotal conference this evening. What time do you finish? I'll have my driver come and pick you up. Let's have dinner together. Was Shen Chuhan actually asking me out for a meal? Was it because of me? Or had her time spent with Pei Jingji taught her how to play these social games? I didn't want to overthink it, so I gently pried her hand off my wrist. I turned my attention to Sophia. Are we having dinner after the movie? Sophia looked like she'd just hit the jackpot, dizzy with a sudden rush of pure joy. She nodded frantically, almost breathless. Only if you want to. I shot Shen Chuhan a thin, mocking smile. Terribly sorry. But I'm already booked. Maybe next time. I'll shoot you a text when it's your turn in the queue. With that, I walked away with Sophia. Shen Chuhan stood frozen on the spot, her usually indifferent expression suddenly eclipsed by a dark, brooding shadow. Pei Jingji watched her reaction closely, his fingers subtly clenching into a fist. Yet he maintained his smile as he stepped forward. Chuhan, we really need to leave for the conference now. Shen Chuhan glanced toward the direction I'd vanished in, her lashes fluttering as she finally looked away. Sophia had clearly put a lot of thought into picking this romance flick, a brand new blockbuster release. Normally I found this entire genre to be a total bore, and I remained completely checked out the whole time. My mind was a chaotic loop of Shen Chuhan, standing side by side with Pei Jingji. In the rare moments I could focus, I was trying to calculate a tactful way to reject Sophia without shattering this innocent girl's heart. Nearly 2 hours eventually crawled by, and the cinema lights flickered back on. Sophia glanced at the bucket of popcorn, clutched in my arms barely touched. She asked tentatively, Lu, do you not have a sweet tooth? How about we grab some Mexican food instead? I snapped out of my trance, taking a sharp, weary breath. I'm so sorry, Sophia. I just remembered I have an assignment I haven't finished. It was a pathetic, transparent excuse, but Shen Chuhan's sudden appearance had completely wrecked my composure. I couldn't conjure up a better lie to save my life. Sophia wasn't stupid. She understood exactly what I was doing in an instant. She cast her eyes downward, looking utterly dejected, biting her lip softly. You're never going to go on another date with me, are you? I felt a lump in my throat and swallowed hard. I suppose not. Don't apologize. You really don't owe me an apology. Sophia lifted her head once more, forcing a smile that looked painful to maintain. The fact that you even agreed to watch a movie with me already made me incredibly happy. Even if you only said yes because of her, I paused, blurting out without thinking. How did you know? Sophia's pained smile widened. Lu, have you ever heard the saying, even if you cover your mouth, love still finds a way to leak out through the eyes? I can see that she's different to you. At the very least, you've never looked at any other girl in this school with that kind of intensity. Her words hit me hard. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't dare imagine just how long Sophia might have been watching me from the shadows. After a long, awkward silence, the only thing I could manage to offer was another, I'm sorry. Sophia gave a nonchalant shrug, feigning a breezy attitude. She looks so sophisticated and mature. Maybe that's just the type you're into. I'm not exactly heartbroken. I just regret that I didn't meet you sooner. But I still have to say one thing, Lu. No matter how much you adore her, please don't become a homewrecker. It turned out she also mistook Shen Chuhan for some successful middle-aged married woman. I couldn't help but let out a short laugh. In truth, Shen Chuhan didn't look old at all. If everyone was making that assumption, it was purely because of her overwhelming icy aura. Sophia, she really isn't. Sophia threw her hands up indifferently. That's your business. I just hope you find your version of happiness. Besides, you have a beautiful smile. You should show it off more often. I nodded with genuine sincerity. I will. Sophia stood up. Do you need me to walk you back? Even though I'm feeling pretty miserable right now, and kind of want to get blackout drunk alone? To mourn the death of my love before it even began. I think I can find my own way back. I smiled and Sophia seemed to exhale all her tension. Thank you. And thank God too. In that case, I'll be taking off. I nodded. Yeah. Sophia turned and walked away, leaving me completely alone in the massive cinema. I sat there in a daze for a while longer, questioning whether this tangled dynamic with Shen Chuhan was actually a mistake from the very start. I wanted her to fall for me so badly, but for someone so devoid of passion and desire, was I asking for the impossible? Maybe 3 years ago. I should have just severed all ties with her for good. I exhaled a heavy silent breath, stood up and trashed the popcorn bucket, before heading out of the theater. The cinema wasn't far from campus, and after gauging the distance, I figured a walk back was exactly what I needed to clear my head. I didn't even notice the sleek black car idling by the curb. As I walked, I pulled out my phone and stared at my chat history with Shen Chuhan. The last message was still the one I'd sent days ago. Even now, she hadn't bothered to reply. The more I brooded, the more my blood boiled. I stopped dead in my tracks and gave a frustrated kick to a pebble on the sidewalk. Showing up to find me with another guy. What's that about? Didn't your Buddha teach you anything about boundaries? I cursed her out in Chinese. So the British locals passing by only threw me a few curious, confused glances. Right then, a sudden crack of thunder echoed through the sky. I froze, realizing things were about to get messy. No umbrella again. This is all David's fault. I swore that when I got back, I'd stuff him in the washer. I glared up at the darkening clouds, desperately calculating if I could outrun the downpour and make it back to the dorms in time. A second later, the rain began to pelt down without warning. I hissed a curse under my breath, shielding my head with my hands as I prepared to bolt. Suddenly, the rain above me just vanished. I frowned and looked up, only to see Shen Chuhan holding a black umbrella as she stood directly behind me. Her dark, piercing eyes locked onto mine. Lu Xian, I've missed you. Her low, velvety voice made my heart skip a beat in total defenseless shock. But immediately after she spoke, another deafening crack of thunder shook the sky. I froze, then pointed a finger at her. You're lying. See, even God can't stand your nonsense. Whatever hint of a sentimental atmosphere that had barely formed vanished in an instant. Shen Chuhan fell silent for a heartbeat, letting out a soft, weary sigh. Just get in the car. The storm is about to get much worse. I hesitated for a second, but as much as I was annoyed with her, I loathed this damp, suffocating air even more. Climbing in, I realized Paging Ji was nowhere to be seen. My mood instantly brightened, if only by a fraction. Still, I deliberately sat as far from her as possible, making my deep-seated dissatisfaction crystal clear. However, Shen Chuhan clearly didn't grasp why I was throwing a tantrum, proceeding to calmly dissect my state of mind. You didn't go to dinner with that Sophia girl, and you never actually wanted to see a movie with her. Refusing to let my guard down or lose momentum, I snapped. That's just because I lost my appetite. I'll definitely be going out to eat with her later. Shen Chuhan stated her conclusion with blunt certainty. You won't be seeing her alone ever again. Her composed, I know everything attitude set a spark to my rising temper. How can you be so sure you're not me? I have her number right here. I could literally call her this very second. I whipped out my phone and swiped to unlock it. But Shen Chuhan suddenly seized my wrist. If you're unhappy, you can just say it to my face. There's no need to force yourself into things you hate. Before I could even formulate a retort, the screen flared to life, revealing the chat window I hadn't closed, right before both of our eyes. The air in the car turned to ice instantly. Well, at least I felt like I was dying inside. Damn it. I totally forgot to clear my recent apps. Shen Chuhan stared at my screen, a look of realization dawning in her eyes. So it was because of this. No, I wrenched my hand back and blacked out the screen. I couldn't care less if you reply to my messages or not. Not even a little bit. As the saying goes, the lady doth protest too much. The more I emphasized it, the guiltier I felt. Shen Chuhan didn't call me out on my bluff. Instead, she whispered a soft apology. I'm sorry. These past few days have been truly hectic. The only free time I had was on the flight, but there was no signal to reply. I came looking for you the very second I landed. So she's actually explaining herself to me now? I tried to keep my composure, but my tone remained sharp. I bet with that Paging G by your side, I was the last thing on your mind. Then again, with a hunk like that around, if I were a woman, I wouldn't be able to resist either. So how far along are you two? Shen Chuhan's brow furrowed slightly. Lu Xian, stop talking nonsense. I let out a cold snort. Hey, if you don't want people to know, don't do it. You've always been so careful with your reputation. Yet suddenly, you have a male assistant following you. What do you think people are going to assume? Shen Chuhan fell into a brief silence. His father and mine are close friends. My father was the one who arranged for him to be my assistant. Then I'm guessing. Your father definitely intends for you to marry him. I cut her off mid-sentence, staring directly into her eyes. Answer me. Am I right? For the first time, Shen Chuhan avoided my gaze. Her thin lips moved softly. That is not my intention. Our engagement still stands, unless you no longer wish to marry me. My fists clenched at my sides. This wasn't exactly a shocker. Compared to my rebellious past, Pei Jingji was practically flawless in every way. For a family of the Shen's stature, if it hadn't been for that specific incident, they never would have agreed to let her marry me. And what if I don't want to marry you? My voice sounded a bit hoarse and strained. Would you marry him or someone else? Shen Chuhan looked up at me. No. It was 3:30 in the morning. David finally reached his breaking point. Bolting upright in his bed, he flicked on the light. Shayan, ever since you got back tonight, you've been giggling to yourself for 3 straight hours. I swear to God, if you don't tell me what happened right now, I'm going to report you to the housing office. I sat up feeling completely helpless. I swear on my life absolutely nothing happened. Yet I couldn't stop my lips from curling into a grin. David vaulted out of his bed and scrambled onto mine in a flash, locking his arm around my neck and pinning me down. I've actually studied MMA. Care to test me? I decided to be honest. Not really. I promise I'll be quiet now. Can we please just go to sleep? Fat chance. David tightened his grip and demanded, so did you and Sophia finally make it official? Wait, what does this have to do with Sophia? I clicked my tongue in annoyance. After the movie, I laid all my cards on the table. She took it well enough, but I doubt we'll be seeing each other ever again. David gasped. Good God. You actually rejected a goddess like her. I gave a nonchalant shrug. If you're so interested, I can give you her number. It's a deal. David instantly let go of me, but you still haven't told me what actually went down. I had no choice but to recount the entire encounter, with Shen Chuhan from start to finish. After listening, David clutched his hands together in shock. So she's divorcing her husband to be with you. I was completely speechless. For the last time, she is single, and she's only 28 years old. 28 isn't exactly young man. David repositioned himself comfortably on my bed. In our culture, if a woman hits 28 without a husband or boyfriend, no guy would even bother asking her out. He suddenly lowered his voice to a whisper. We'd start questioning if her, sexual orientation was a bit skewed. I threw my hands up in exasperation. The reality is she's a devout Buddhist. David's jaw dropped. Wait, so she's like a female monk? Well, I couldn't help but think, in a way, yeah. What followed next? Was David using his hilariously limited knowledge of China to lecture me with an entire world's worth of nonsense? By the time I finally drifted off, David was still rambling on without end. I didn't have any classes the next morning, but a persistent ringtone jolted me awake. I desperately hoped it was Shen Chuhan calling, but when I answered, it was Pei Jingji's voice on the line. Mr. Liu, how about we grab a coffee together? My eyes snapped wide open instantly. Seeing my grim expression as I agreed to meet, David sat up rubbing his sleepy eyes. What's up? I flung my wardrobe doors open with a bang. My romantic rival just declared war. David was suddenly revitalized, like he'd had a shot of adrenaline, looking more hyped than me. Let me handle this. I'll style your outfit to kill. I glanced at my usual everyday clothes and gave a tactful dry response. His skill level isn't high enough to require your assistance yet. David flopped back onto his pillow. Too weak, huh? Then I wish you a glorious victory. Pei Jingji scheduled our meeting for the afternoon, clearly choosing a time when Shen Chuhan was occupied. As for me, I could already envision exactly what he was going to say. It would be the usual, you're not worthy of Chuhan, or you should just leave her, and all that cliche garbage. I narrowed my eyes in thought, changed my clothes, and stepped out the door. Then I ducked into a tattoo parlor tucked away in an alley corner. I pulled up a reference photo and handed it to the artist. I want this exact design right here. I arrived precisely on time at the designated cafe and pushed the door open. As expected, Shen Chuhan was nowhere in sight. I took my seat directly across from Pei Jingji, ordered a sweet cappuccino from the waiter, and finally turned my attention toward him. Pei Jingji took a slow sip of his iced Americano and flashed a thin, practiced smile. Chuhan has always detested these overly sugary things, and so the opening salvo was fired. I squinted and let out a small mocking laugh. Is that why she prefers the taste of my kisses instead? Total lie, obviously. Shen Chuhan had never actually made a move on me, not since that firework incident in the previous timeline. Pei Jingji's polite expression froze for a split second. I didn't let up and continued. Are you aware she came to fetch me from the cinema last night? The rain was absolutely pouring outside, and we were getting incredibly intimate inside the car. She kissed me so hard my lips actually went numb. I casually brushed my fingers against my mouth as if recalling the sensation. Complete cap, of course. Absolutely nothing happened between me and Shen Chuhan last night. She simply dropped me off at the dorms and left. But I have to confess, when she looked at me and said she wouldn't marry anyone else, I felt a sudden reckless impulse to just lunge forward and pin a kiss on her right then and there. Pei Jingzi gripped his coffee cup so hard his knuckles turned white, clearly struggling to keep his perfect gentleman mask from cracking. Honestly, watching him try this hard is exhausting. If he would just slam his fist on the table and admit he's head over heels for Shen Chuhan, I might actually have a shred of respect for the guy. The waiter arrived with my cappuccino just in time. I took a slow, deliberate sip, instantly furrowing my brow in distaste. As expected, even with extra milk and sugar, it's still bitter. Coffee is just like people, don't you think? No matter how much you dress it up, you can't change what's at the core. The jab wasn't subtle, and Pei Jingji definitely felt the sting. He was teetering on the edge of losing his legendary composure. He took a sharp breath and set his cup down, fixing his gaze on me. Mr. Liu, to be perfectly blunt, you are nowhere near Chuhan's level. Your vision, your status, and your temperament are worlds apart from hers. A relationship like this is doomed to be miserable. And I suppose you think she needs someone like you instead? I cut him off with a cryptic mocking grin. Well, let me be blunt with you too. Why do you think the Shen family didn't scrap this engagement 3 long years ago? You think it's because I crawled back and begged after running away? Sorry to burst your bubble. But it was actually Shen Chuhan who refused to break it off. She was the one who asked me for a chance. Watching the color drain from Pei Jingji's face second by second was pure unadulterated therapy for me. Lust after what belongs to another man. That's a major lapse in judgment on his part. Pei Jingji exhaled slowly once more. Mr. Liu, why persist in this pathetic self-delusion? Chuhan is a woman dedicated to Zen and meditation. She was never meant to be tied down by worldly desires. She needs a partner who can actually provide value to her. I let out a sharp mocking snicker. The phrase self-delusion, I'm returning it to you unopened and in full. Mr. Pei, I think you've got a massive overconfidence problem. Who exactly led you to believe you're a better match for her? Pei Jingji shifted in his seat, agitated. Uncle Shen and Auntie Shen both absolutely adore me. Then go marry her parents' Pei. I couldn't stop myself from rolling my eyes. What century are we even living in? Are we really doing the parents' orders and matchmaker's word bit? Mr. Pei, you're remarkably dim-witted. Maybe I should check if you've got your feet bound too. Pei Jingzi slammed his hands down and bolted upright. You are utterly beyond reason. I'm going to make sure Chuhan knows exactly what kind of person you really are. I crossed my arms and leaned back lazily against the chair. See, I'm not like you. I don't have the patience for fake personas, so Shen Chuhan knows far better than you do exactly what kind of man I am. Pei Jingji knit his brows in confusion. What do you mean by that? I just smirked and kept my mouth shut. Then I flipped over my phone, which had been face down on the table. The glowing screen clearly displayed an active ongoing call with Shen Chuhan. Pei Jingji's face turned ghostly white in an instant. I took a slow, unhurried sip of my coffee. Like I said, Mr. Pei, I've never been a fan of putting on an act. Whatever kind of person I am is exactly the person I show the world. If you had just been man enough to tell me directly that you're in love with Shen Chuhan, I might have actually respected you a little. Unfortunately, I've always had zero tolerance for people who stand on ceremony and act superior. Well, except for Shen Chuhan. She's a traditional Buddhist soul, so she gets a pass. Pei Jingji was so livid, his entire body was trembling. He stared unblinkingly at the phone mid-call, his heart hammering against his ribs like it was about to burst. His mind raced, desperately seeking a way to explain this to her, but no matter how he spun it, he had zero ground to stand on. He never imagined in his wildest dreams I'd pull a stunt like this. I picked up the phone and tapped the speakerphone button. You really are a foolish man. Only an amateur relies on his own fist to deal with a rival. So Shen Chuhan, how are we handling this? Having such a handsome male assistant lusting after you is making me feel incredibly insecure. Shen Chuhan's icy clinical voice echoed from the receiver. Pei Jingji, starting from tomorrow, I'm transferring you to the finance department on the 33rd floor. Do you accept this? This was a blatant public execution of his position. Pei Jingji's hands hanging at his sides clenched so tightly they began to tremble. He remained deathly silent. I spared him a fleeting mocking glance. Or perhaps you prefer to just resign. I accept. Pei Jingji hissed through gritted teeth. I accept. Then it's settled. I shifted my gaze away from him, tapped the speakerphone off, and pressed the phone to my ear. Come pick me up. Great, I'll be waiting for you right here at the cafe. What's for dinner tonight? I have no clue. Can you actually cook? Pei Jingji watched me intently, chatting away with the woman he loved as if he didn't even exist. The jealousy in his heart was practically reaching its boiling point. Yet there was absolutely nothing he could do. The war he thought he would win with ease hadn't even truly begun, before his total defeat was officially declared. Still, Pei Jingji refused to believe that Shen Chuhan could actually love someone like me. Anyone else, even some other man he actually respected, would make sense. But why did it have to be me? In his eyes, I wasn't worthy of her in any capacity. As he stewed in his indignant thoughts, I looked up and caught his eye. Why are you still standing there? Oh, right. Chuhan said you should book your own flight home. The company will reimburse the cost. Pei. Jingzi couldn't stand another second of this humiliation. He snatched up his coat to make a break for the exit. However, just as he moved past me, he caught a glimpse of something that made him freeze in his tracks. As I reached up, the hem of my shirt shifted, revealing my waist, where a massive blood-red lotus flower was blooming across my skin. Pei Jingzi lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, interrogating me. "What the hell did you tattoo on yourself?" I looked at him like he was a total lunatic. "What's it to you?" Pei Jingzi's chest was heaving with pure rage. You're desecrating her very soul. Desecrating her path to Zen? I ended the call with Shen Chuhan, yanking my wrist back from his grip. I stood up with a taunting smirk. And what if I am? Desecrating her is exactly what I intend to do. What are you going to do about it? Pei Jingzi pointed a finger at me, his hand trembling with rage. Lucian, karma is going to hit you like a freight train. I'll be waiting for it. I laughed, completely unfazed. Pei Jingzi stormed out in a blind fury, his heavy footsteps sounding like he wanted to stomp a hole right through the floor. I sat back down and took another experimental sip of the coffee. Forget it, this stuff is still way too bitter. I waved over the waiter. Do you guys serve juice here? The waiter blinked. Yes, sir. What kind would you like? Shen Chuhan eventually tracked me down at a bar at the end of the street, mainly because I decided the juice at that cafe was absolutely pathetic. It couldn't compare to a cold wheat juice. So I migrated to this bar instead. One thing led to another and I swapped the beer for whiskey. By the time she found me, I had nearly polished off an entire bottle of whiskey and was clumsily attempting to dance with the crowd. Shen Chuhan sighed and stepped forward, dragging me out from the sea of people. She pinned me onto a bar stool. Lucian, are you even conscious? My vision was a hazy blur, and my hands began wandering all over her face. Oh look, it's Shen Chuhan. You finally showed up. What did you just ask? I'm great, never been better. What I meant was, I'm completely hammered, and I'm probably going to barf any second. Shen Chuhan let out a soft, resigned sigh as she supported my weight and led me out. Stop squirming. I'm taking you back. I started flailing my arms around. And where exactly are we going? A hotel? Are we finally going to bed? Shen Chuhan didn't have a spare hand to cover my mouth. She could only be grateful we were in a foreign country, where almost nobody could understand my drunken ramblings. Otherwise, I'd probably be hauled off by the cops in 10 minutes flat. She quickened her pace and ushered me into the car. Lobin, who was sitting in the driver's seat, glanced at Shen Chuhan through the rearview mirror. President Shen, where are we headed now? Shen Chuhan took one look at my completely wasted state. Back to the hotel. Understood. Lobin struggled to keep his facial expression neutral, but inside he was dying of curiosity and disbelief. He reminded himself that prying into the boss's life was a death wish. They arrived at the hotel entrance in record time. Shen Chuhan hopped out and supported me all the way to the elevator. By now, I had completely passed out, my eyes tightly shut, acting like a total angel. To anyone looking, I looked like a well-fed kitten drifting off to sleep. Shen Chuhan found herself unable to stop staring at my face, only snapping out of it when the elevator reached her floor. Once back in the suite, she laid me onto the bed with extreme care, terrified of waking me up. After tucking me in securely under the covers, she finally turned and headed into the bathroom for a shower. However, even under the spray, her mind was still flooded with images of my face. Shen Chuhan realized that for the first time, her emotions were spiraling out of control. Her breathing gradually grew heavy and ragged, and a mysterious heat began to radiate through her body. Without hesitation, she wrenched the faucet handle all the way to the cold side. Just at that moment, the sound of the sliding door clicking open echoed behind her. Shen Chuhan spun around instinctively, only to find me leaning limply against the doorframe. My burning gaze wandered shamelessly over every inch of her, and then my lips curled into a smirk. Why didn't you invite me to join you? Her brain went completely blank in an instant. The only thing she did by sheer instinct was fumble with the valve to turn the hot water back on. Before her voice could even register, I stepped barefoot into the puddles on the tiled floor. My center of gravity was already a mess, and the second my foot hit the wet surface, I lost my footing completely. I started plummeting forward straight toward her. Shen Chuhan reacted with lightning speed to steady me, catching me as I lunged straight into her arms. The searing contact made her skin flush even hotter. Shen Chuhan swallowed hard, her voice dropping to a low husky rasp. Lucian, stop this nonsense. Get up now, instead of pulling away. I leaned in closer, nuzzling against her. No way. I'm showering with you. Shen Chuhan instantly felt her ironclad composure beginning to fracture. She opened her mouth to protest, but her eyes fell upon my exposed skin, right where that blood-red lotus was blooming on my waist. Her breath hitched in her throat, feeling as though she had caught a contact high from my intoxication. Otherwise, why would her head be spinning like this? Shen Chuhan summoned every last ounce of her willpower to suppress the rising tide of her desire. Lucian, what is that on your body? I gave a soft, drunken giggle and looked up. It's a lotus. The same lotus flower you love so much. Shen Chuhan felt as though her throat was parched and burning. Why would you tattoo that? Because I gave her a heavy, lingering gaze. I want to become your obsession. The next thing I knew, I was being pinned back onto the bed. Before I could even process the shift, Shen Chuhan had already loomed over me, blotting out every single ray of light in the room. Despite her desperate attempts to stay in control, her breathing had grown noticeably heavy and ragged. She stared intensely into my eyes, pinning my wrist down firmly beside my head. "Lucian, look at me. Do you even know who I am?" I blinked up at her, a playful smirk dancing on my lips. "You're Shen Chuhan." My final words were swallowed whole by her kiss. The temperature in the room surged higher with every lingering, passionate movement. I felt a bit stifled under her weight, pushing weakly against her soft, warm body. "I'm hot." But Shen Chuhan only pulled me closer, pressing my body flush against hers. "You won't be hot for long," she whispered, leaning in again. Inside the room, the silence was broken only by the sound of our tangled breaths. Shen Chuhan's palm traced a path from my lower abdomen, sliding slowly up along my side. Since it hadn't been long since I got inked, the raised, fresh texture of the tattoo was still vivid under her touch. She kissed me with a calm, eyes-closed intensity, her mind already sketching the intricate shape of that crimson lotus. Shen Chuhan's breath hitching in shallow gasps. She leaned in to nip gently at my earlobe. "Lucian, you win." In that singular moment, her iron resolve utterly shattered. The sacred precepts that had bound her for 28 years vanished into thin air the second she looked at me. Shen Chuhan couldn't remember anything else. She only knew that her soul was craving for more. She wanted me to truly finally become her husband. She wanted me by her side for the rest of eternity. 3 years ago, I vowed to be the hurdle she couldn't cross, demanding to be her only worldly constraint. 3 years later, there was no room left in Shen Chuhan's heart for her old zen, leaving space for nothing and no one but me. Her searing, feverish palms began to wander hungrily across every inch of my skin. Every ragged, heavy moan that escaped my lips only served to make Shen Chuhan's blood boil with desire. The moment my final layer of clothing was stripped away, the sudden bite of the room's cold air jolted me toward sobriety. I stared up completely dazed at this version of Shen Chuhan who looked like a total stranger, feeling my heart hammer against my ribs, completely out of control. It felt as though she held my very soul in the palm of her hand. "Shen Chuhan, you haven't touched a drop of alcohol, right?" She lifted her head from my chest, her pitch black eyes threatening to pull me into a bottomless abyss. I have never been more sober in my entire life. My fingers twitched nervously. "Then, what about your zen?" "I'm returning to the secular world," she said, cutting me off. She possessively interlocked her fingers with mine. "You are my new obsession, my only meditation." "Lucian, will you marry me?" My breath hitched in my throat, and every sound in the world seemed to fade into a dull hum. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, yet I had no choice but to accept it as the truth. Because I had never seen Shen Chuhan look this desperate before. When I didn't answer immediately, Shen Chuhan didn't press further or move an inch. She just watched me with a quiet, heavy intensity, waiting for the words to leave my lips. Our gazes remained locked in a silent battlefield, but the thick, suffocating tension between us only grew stronger. I opened my mouth to speak, but the sudden shrill blast of my ringtone shattered the moment. Shen Chuhan's brow furrowed as she glanced at the caller ID, before reaching over and handing the device to me. "It's Song Wanyi calling." I snatched the phone and answered instantly. "If you don't have something monumental to tell me, I swear to God, Song Wanyi, I will fly back home just to end you." Song Wanyi paused for a beat, then burst into her signature heartless laughter. "Lucian, I'm getting married." 30 seconds later, my shocked scream echoed throughout the hotel room. "Say what?" I couldn't believe my ears. There was no way Song Wanyi was beating me to the altar, especially since in my previous life, 32-year-old Song Wanyi was still perpetually single. Where on earth did she suddenly spawn a fiancé from? Now, as I sat on the flight back to our home country, I was still utterly baffled by the news. Shen Chuhan lay beside me, already drifted off to sleep. Thanks to Song Wanyi's poorly timed phone call, she hadn't been able to finish what she started last night, leaving her with no choice but to take a freezing cold shower. As it turns out, a woman left unsatisfied in certain departments can get pretty cranky, but I just smiled and looked away, turning my attention to the male ring on my middle finger. Shen Chuhan had been hell-bent on making me wear it. At the time, considering the dark shadows under her eyes, I was genuinely worried she might snap from the frustration, so I simply agreed to put it on. But I can't deny that deep down I was ecstatic. I stealthily opened the recording app on my phone, hoping to relive the words Shen Chuhan whispered to me in bed. But when I pressed the play button, absolutely nothing came through my earbuds. I frowned in confusion, wondering if my headphones were broken when Shen Chuhan suddenly plucked out one of her own earbuds and handed it over to me. "Your Bluetooth is connected to my set." From the earbud came a woman's voice thick with amusement. "I'm returning to the secular world. You are my new obsession." I let out a couple of awkward forced laughs and scrambled to kill the recording as fast as possible. Shen Chuhan opened her eyes and tilted her head toward me. "So you weren't actually drunk at all, were you?" I immediately bolted upright in my seat. I swear on my life, that's not it. I only realized way later that I had accidentally hit the record button. It just so happened to capture those specific lines. "It's fate. not some calculated scheme. Shen Chuhan, however, let out a soft, airy chuckle. It's fine. If you enjoy listening to it, I can say those things to you every single day. I was completely stunned. After a beat, I asked hesitantly, Are you really Shen Chuhan? I suspect you've been possessed by some smooth-talking spirit. Is this really something the cold Shen Chuhan would say? Spill it. I formed a gun with my thumb and forefinger, pressing it against her temple. Did you go behind my back? And enroll in some secret romantic sweet talk boot camp? Shen Chuhan smiled, gently lowering my hand into her palm. I'm simply speaking from the heart. Sangwani's new boyfriend was unsurprisingly another guy she'd picked up at a bar. The two of them hit it off instantly and headed straight to a hotel that very night. However, when Sangwani woke up the next morning, the man had already vanished into thin air, leaving a stack of $1,000 on the nightstand. $1,000. When Sangwani recounted this debacle to me, her face was practically crimson with pure rage. She had never endured such a humiliating insult in her life. Usually she was the one who dipped early and left cash behind for the other person. Consequently, this man became an obsession rooted in her mind. She spent every waking moment and every dream plotting that if she ever crossed paths with him again, she would make him pay in the most brutal way possible. That fateful day arrived sooner than expected. They reunited at a high society business gala. It was only then that Song Wanyi discovered that the man who slept with her and treated her like a pro was actually the eldest young master of the Li family. Li Hanting approached her with a fake polite smile for a toast, but to her shock, he didn't have a clue who she was. Not only that, he actually had the audacity to hit on her a second time. Song Wanyi swore a blood oath to get her revenge, deciding to endure his presence for the moment, to play the long game. But she didn't expect that while playing the field, she'd end up falling head over heels in love with him. I spent a long time processing that wild story with a heavy sigh. Finally, I patted Song Wanyi's shoulder. Honestly, you had it coming. The wedding ceremony was an incredibly grand affair. When it came time for the bouquet toss, the flowers landed right in my hands. The guests' gazes shifted suggestively between me and Shen Chuhan, scanning us back and forth with knowing looks. Someone in the crowd hollered, "Hey, young Master Lu, when are you and President Shen finally tying the knot?" Before I could even open my mouth to respond, I heard Shen Chuhan's voice whisper right beside my ear. It's entirely up to him. My wedding with Shen Chuhan was eventually held a year later in October. By then, I had finally wrapped up my studies and returned home from the UK. During our farewell at the airport, David rambled on, unable to hide his heartbreak over my departure. It's worth mentioning that he had actually ended up dating Sophia by then. As I watched his snot practically about to drip onto my expensive jacket, I grabbed his shoulders and yanked him upright. Look, buddy, I hate to kill the vibe of your emotional breakdown, but I'm getting married very soon. I'll be inviting both you and Sophia to the ceremony, which means we're going to see each other again in no time. David sniffled loudly. You mean to that divorced middle-aged lady? Standing nearby, Shen Chuhan shot him a lethal bone-chilling glare. A shiver ran down my spine, and I scrambled to clap a hand over his mouth, whispering a threat. One more word, and you're paying for your own round-trip plane tickets. David instantly shut his trap and went silent. 4 years ago, when Shen Chuhan halted our wedding, we assumed we'd be able to resume it shortly. Because of that, the decorations at the venue were never taken down. It was a private estate owned by the Shen family anyway. Nobody expected the hiatus to last for 4 whole years. Inevitably, the once vibrant decorations had begun to wither and yellow. Everything had to be scrapped and rebuilt from scratch. I thought this meant we'd have to wait another few months. But Shen Chuhan surprised me by leading me to a different location. As we pushed open the grand doors of the chapel, a brand new, pristine wedding setup was revealed. And standing right in the center of the hall was a perfectly tailored handmade suit. I stood there completely stunned for a long moment. Then I pointed at the suit and turned to Shen Chuhan. You already had this suit prepared. Were you that certain I'd marry you? Shen Chuhan pulled me into a tight embrace. Unless you're planning to ditch me at the altar again. I immediately backed down. No way. The ceremony proceeded without a hitch. Everyone was beaming with joy. Everyone except Lu Zhengting, that is. To prevent a repeat of the tragedy from 4 years ago, he hired 4 times the security to keep watch. Outside the chapel, before the vows even began, he strictly ordered them that if I showed any sign of fleeing, they were to tackle and restrain me instantly. I gave a massive exaggerated roll of my eyes at that. And then, Shen Chuhan reached over and gently covered my eyes. That's a bad habit, she whispered. Don't do that anymore. Naturally, I remained completely unimpressed by her request. A year later, Shen Chuhan and I welcomed our son into the world. Unsurprisingly, she wanted to name him Lucy. I rejected the idea with absolute moral indignation, threatening that, if she insisted on that name, I'd file for divorce on the spot. In the end, we named our son Lu Jiheng, with the nickname Heng Heng. Another year flew by. It was time for Lu Jiheng's first birthday grab ceremony. On a massive 5-meter round table, amidst countless significant objects, he made a beeline for the one I had, secretly planted there a miniature motorcycle. Toy, I almost burst into tears of regret. Idiocy of regret. Shen Shuhan cut me off with a dry look. Quit the act. You're actually thrilled. I gave a smug grin, wiping away non-existent tears. Fine, I'll stop. Our days flowed by in a peaceful yet blissfully happy rhythm. However, as our 8th wedding anniversary approached, I found myself sinking into a deep funk. There was no other reason than one haunting fact. In my previous timeline, this was the exact moment in time when Shen Shuhan and I had our messy divorce. Even though everything in this life had veered completely off that original track, I couldn't stop the creeping dread from taking over. Shen Shuhan tried digging for the truth multiple times, but got nowhere. Eventually, she used her own unique method to shatter my anxieties. On this particular morning, a piercing, high-pitched scream erupted from my room and filled the house. The sound even reached the first floor, where little Lu Jiheng was currently eating his breakfast. He lifted his face from his plate, cheeks smeared with salad dressing. "Mom, what happened to Dad?" Shen Shuhan had lectured him countless times on proper etiquette. Yet Lu Jiheng's wild personality was simply unavoidable. She calmly wiped the messy stains off his little face. "It's nothing. Mom just gave Dad a huge surprise. You're going to have a little brother or sister very soon.